Chapter 607. It was a starry night, and the stars in the sky rippled on the surface of the pool. The banquet had already ended, and there was no one around. Ding Meng stood alone by the pool. He was waiting for someone, and the person he was waiting for did not disappoint him. A black shadow floated out like a ghost from behind a parasol tree not far away. The black shadow had a graceful figure, and it was indeed Su Mengqing's bodyguard named Hong Yi. Before Hong Yi could even activate her origin energy, Ding Meng spoke first. Lead the way. Hong Yi was stunned. Sheng Tianming seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. She had been discovered. Lead the way. Hong Yi asked coldly. Ding Meng said lightly. Take me to Miss Su. Hong Yi sneered. In your dreams. Ding Meng sighed. Since you don't want to lead the way, I'll have to go by myself. Hong Yi's trip was not ordered by Su Mengqing, but Su Mengqing had acquiesced. Her purpose was to teach Sheng Tianming a lesson, so that he would retreat and leave Blue Pole Star City on his own accord. Hong Yi didn't even want to make a move. For an ordinary person like Sheng Tianming, she could just throw her origin energy over and knock him out. In fact, she had done the same. However, the moment she activated her origin energy a little, her vision went black, and then she lost consciousness. Ding Meng slowly turned around and looked disdainfully at Hong Yi, who had fallen unconscious on the ground. This kind of warlord was no threat to him at all. He just threw a Terminator spell over and directly froze her consciousness. Along the quiet parasol tree path, Ding Meng soon came to a small villa in a quiet forest. With a slight effort of his eyes, the door of the villa opened. He did not enter the house, but he had already scanned the situation inside. Su Mengqing seemed to have just finished showering and had changed into a low-necked silk robe. She was sitting on the sofa and tasting red wine. As soon as the door opened, her male bodyguard immediately sensed it and asked in a deep voice, Xiao Yi? Ding Meng walked directly into the hall on the first floor. I thought Miss Su would invite me over politely. I didn't expect you to be so arrogant and ask me to come here myself. I don't remember you being like this before. Hearing this magnetic voice, Su Mengqing and the male bodyguard were both shocked. However, the male bodyguard was still a professional, so he reacted quickly. He suddenly jumped up from his seat and pounced on Ding Meng like an eagle catching a chick. Ding Meng waved his hand casually, and all the swift and fierce attacks immediately disappeared. The male bodyguard, like Hong Ye, quickly fell from the sky and fainted on the ground. Only then did Su Mengqing reveal a horrified expression. Although she was just a non-combat type origin ability user, this didn't mean that she didn't understand the level of combat type origin ability users. Her two bodyguards were warlords sent by the headquarters. This male bodyguard's strength was above Hong Ye's, yet he couldn't even get close to the opponent. This Sheng Tianming was actually a hidden expert, and the key point was what method Sheng Tianming used. She had never seen it before, and the male bodyguard probably hadn't seen it himself either. However, Su Mengqing's expression was still very calm. Mr. Sheng, it doesn't seem appropriate for you to make a move here, right? Ding Meng sat down on the opposite side of the sofa and slowly poured himself a glass of red wine. Do you know that on planet KV-303, those people can't even drink such a small glass of limited edition Jazz brand red wine, even if they work hard for their entire lives? Su Mengqing stared at him and calmly said, You're not one of Sheng Hao's people. You're one of Green Arrow's people. Ding Meng lifted the wine glass and took a small sip. And then? You think that with Xing Hong Group's strength, 10,000 Green Arrow Corps can't do anything to it? Is that what you think? She did think so. She was sure that Ding Meng wouldn't make a big move here. And she also knew that no matter how strong Green Arrow's people were, they wouldn't dare to go against Xing Hong Group. Ding Meng suddenly smiled. You guessed right. Green Arrow Corps can't do anything to Xing Hong Group, but I have many ways to deal with you. You better cooperate. Su Mengqing shrank back and looked a little nervous. What do you want? Ding Meng gently waved his hand, and the wristband on the coffee table automatically flew into his hand. I didn't kill you because of Fong Zhenghao's relationship with you. This person was indeed here for Fong Zhenghao. Su Mengqing felt relieved. Who are you? Ding Meng said sternly. My patience is limited. Don't beat around the bush. How did Fang Jinghao die? Su Mengqing refused to answer. Ding Meng sneered and turned on a wristband. I have plenty of ways to make you talk. After that, he exerted a little force with his eyes, and the silk bathrobe on Su Mengqing's body was torn into two halves by his telekinesis. Her white, jade-like body was immediately exposed under the pale yellow light. The places that should be exposed and should not be exposed were all exposed. It had to be said that the celebrity's skin was really well maintained. The white luster made people have the urge to touch it. Su Mengqing let out a cry of surprise, and then she hugged her chest tightly. She was so scared that she immediately curled up in a corner of the sofa. Her pair of jade legs made people unable to move their eyes away. Her actions seemed to be fearful, but in fact, it was full of indescribable temptation. However, Ding Meng looked at her as if he was looking at a piece of wood. He sneered and said, "You can keep being stubborn. Tomorrow morning, a video of a big star naked on the International Space Network will be leaked. I'm afraid the whole Federation will be shocked." Su Mengqing finally showed a look of horror. This was what she was most afraid of. She worked hard in this circle and climbed up the ladder at all costs, hoping to become a star in the eyes of everyone. However, if such a video was leaked, she would immediately lose her reputation, and the reputation of the Starbao Group would be damaged. Ding Meng really hit her soft spot. Seeing Ding Meng raise his wristband, Su Mengqing shouted, "Wait a minute." Ding Meng said coldly, "I'll only give you this one chance. There won't be a next time." Su Mengqing said timidly, "Can you let me change my clothes?" There were only two words in response. No. Su Mengqing was helpless. She had already seen that Sheng Tianming was not an easy person to talk to. Song Chun ordered someone to do it. Su Mengqing gritted her teeth and answered. Ding Meng said, "Ling Xingwen's cousin?" "Yes." Su Mengqing took a deep breath. At the same time, he is also the boss of Starbao Entertainment. Ding Meng said, "It is said that you are his lover." "No." Su Mengqing clenched her teeth even tighter. Ding Meng was a little surprised. "Oh." Su Mengqing's eyes were filled with resentment. "I'm just one of his many women's playthings. When I joined Starry Rainbow Entertainment, I was targeted by him. You should understand that I can't resist. I'm not interested in your stupid business." Ding Meng interrupted her coldly. "Why does Song Chen want to deal with Fang Jinghao?" Su Mengqing sighed helplessly. "Jinghao and I were lovers when we were classmates. After graduation, he insisted on going to Green Arrow, and I joined Starbao. 7 years ago, after Ding Meng's death, the higher-ups of Starbao didn't do anything to help Green Arrow. Jinghao came to me, and he hoped that I could plead with Miss Ling," Ding Meng said. "So you rekindled your old flame?" Su Mengqing sighed faintly. "Although I used to look down on him, he was my first man after all. I was rotten to the core, but he never abandoned me. I also promised him that after he settled Green Arrow, he would resign from his position as the regiment commander and accompany me to the Empire to start a new life. So it seems like you guys are eloping." Ding Meng pondered and said, "If there's no special reason to migrate from the Federation to the Empire, it's theoretically impossible. Moreover, you're an entertainment star of the Federation. Without special channels, you can't get there." Su Mengqing said, "Jinghao has such channels. He has a friend called Bai Qingli, who is in the same generation as Bai Qingyan. He's ranked 4th. With the power of the Bai family, it's naturally possible." Ding Meng was speechless. Once this woman was blinded by love, she was so naive that she was retarded. Bai Qingyan's brother was Bai Qingli. How could Song Chun, an executive of Starbao Entertainment, not know that Su Mengqing and Fang Jinghao wanted to run away? Ding Meng said, "So, Bai Qingli betrayed Fang Jinghao." Su Mengqing gritted her teeth and said, "He suggested to Jinghao that before leaving the Federation, it's best to get something called the Phantom Tree. That thing can change our appearances." As soon as she mentioned the Phantom Tree, Ding Meng immediately understood Bai Qingli's train of thought. This guy wanted Fang Jinghao to get the 1,000 Shadow Foil because it could change a person's appearance. This way, when Fang Jinghao and Su Mengqing arrived at the Empire, they would have a brand new identity and could indeed start a new life. However, with Fang Jinghao's strength, Going to the Zlato's star field to look for the 1,000 shadow foil was simply suicide. Moreover, the 1,000 shadow foil itself contained the devouring world's poison. Even if he could find it, he would only die faster. Ding Meng could completely imagine how vicious this move was. Fang Jinghao probably thought that his friend was thinking for him. Little did he know that he would die in the Zlato's star field before Song Chun and Bai Qingli did anything. Ding Meng said quietly, "I understand. This is killing with a borrowed knife." Su Mingqing's eyes suddenly turned red. When I found out about this, Jinghao had already been dead for 2 months. If it wasn't for Meng Yin of the Dragon-Slaying Corps releasing the news, we wouldn't have known that he had died in the devouring world. He's really pitiful. Ding Meng frowned and said, "How did the Dragon-Slaying Corps know about this?" Su Mingqing said, "Meng Yin is well-informed in outer space. She usually knows about major events. Moreover, Meng Yin used to be Ding Meng's subordinate. Ding Meng used to be very close to Zhang Hao, so she definitely wouldn't hide this from Green Arrow." Ding Meng sighed secretly. He did not expect there to be so many secrets behind this matter. So Green Arrow sent people to look for the body? The hatred in Su Mingqing's eyes burned even brighter. Gulaga and Silman went personally. When they found the body, the soul had already dissipated. Song Chen also threatened me. If I dared to leave him, he would make my life worse than death. He would not let anyone, including my family and friends, go. Even more arrogant than me. Ding Meng could not help but sneer. What's up with Gulaga and Silman? Chapter 608. Su Mingqing said, "I know that Gulaga and Sleeman are Zhang Hao's most loyal subordinates. They definitely won't believe Xinhong Corporation's official statement." Ding Meng said coldly, "Seems like Xinhong Corporation didn't play a good role in this." "Yes," Su Mingqing said with a straight face. "Second Miss wants to minimize the problem because no matter what, Zhang Hao is the commander of the Green Arrow Corps, and the Green Arrow Corps is officially registered and recognized by the federal parliament. His mysterious death will naturally lead to an investigation." Ding Meng said, "What about the transit string? Did she not react?" Su Mingqing said, "Miss Ling wants to handle this impartially and wants Second Miss to hand over the murderer." Ding Meng nodded. "She still has some conscience." Su Mingqing couldn't help but look at Ding Meng. She doesn't have a conscience. She's very ambitious. She just wants to use this to weaken Second Miss's power and expand her influence in Xinhong Corporation. However, the boss listened to Second Miss's suggestion and suppressed the matter. The relevant organizations didn't follow up, and Zhang Hao died just like that. Ding Meng became expressionless. One Xinhong Corporation, won by family. Not bad. Flawless operation. Su Mingqing said, "If you're Zhang Hao's friend, I advise you to leave this place quickly. Don't think about revenge." Ding Meng turned and stared at her. "What about you? Haven't you thought about revenge? Fang Jinghao is someone you're willing to entrust your life to. Are you going to act like nothing happened?" Su Mingqing sighed faintly. "What can I do?" "Yes, what can I do? She was just a toy. She didn't even have the strength to struggle, let alone take revenge. She could only be trampled on. Sometimes, justice wasn't in the heart. Right and wrong were actually related to strength. Without strength, all thoughts were just wishful thinking." Ding Meng suddenly sighed. "Let me ask you, have you ever believed Fang Jinghao?" Su Mingqing sighed. "Of course I believe him, because I know that he really loves me. All the other men just want me to sleep with them." Ding Meng said, "Fang Jinghao is willing to abandon the Green Arrow base that he has been running for many years to go away with you. It's obvious that he has feelings for you. Based on this, I'll give you a way out. Give up everything you have and report to KV 303. Are you willing?" Su Mingqing was stunned again. "Why?" Ding Meng said, "Don't ask so many questions. Are you willing or not?" Su Mingqing was silent. Ding Meng sighed. "It's easy to go from being frugal to being extravagant, but it's hard to go from being extravagant to being frugal. It's really difficult for you to let go of your status as a celebrity, give up your luxurious life, and live like a refugee. However, I'll only remind you this once. Your choice will affect your own safety. Since things have already happened, and I'm here, a woman like you is like a weed. The chances of you surviving in the end are very slim. Su Mengqing was also someone who had been through a lot. She immediately understood the great danger in Ding Meng's words. Regardless of whether this Sheng Tianming was Sheng Hao's man or not, and whether he was ridiculously strong, he would definitely cause a big commotion. In the end, whether Sheng Hao would have the last laugh or Xing Hong would still be the strong one. In any case, people like her would definitely be dragged into the vortex. Although she was usually surrounded by attendants and limitless glory, in the eyes of those big shots, she was actually nothing. However, when necessary, she could be pushed out to die without batting an eyelid. She had seen a lot of these things and had thought a lot about it. Okay, I'll go. Su Mengqing made up her mind. Ding Meng nodded. You're smart, not stupid. However, I still have to remind you that if you lie to me tonight, or if you go against me behind my back, I promise you that you'll end up worse than death. For some reason, Su Mengqing felt an inexplicable chill. Sheng Tianming was too cold. It was not the kind of coldness on the surface, but a coldness that came from the bottom of his heart. She shrank her body again. Can I change my clothes now? Ding Meng looked at her again. Su Mengqing was now naked except for a small purple-red triangular undergarment around her waist. Ding Meng suddenly waved his hand. The wardrobe in the inner room opened, and all kinds of clothes flew out and floated in the air. There were a lot of colorful clothes, especially the undergarments and dresses. There were also a lot of cosmetics. Su Mengqing's pretty face was a little red. Do you want me to change here? Ding Meng was expressionless. Yes, you can change in front of me. Su Mengqing lowered her head. But, no buts, no buts. Ding Meng interrupted her mercilessly. Don't think that I have any ideas about you. You have nothing to look at, Su Mengqing said. Then why don't you give me some privacy? Ding Meng said, from now on, not only do I want to see you change your clothes, I also want to know what you like to wear, how you put on makeup, big and small problems on your body, including your eating habits, walking posture, sleeping posture, sitting posture, how big your breasts are, how wide your butt is, and what your physiological structure is. In short, you have no privacy in front of me now. I even want to know when you go to the toilet to pee or poop, even if you wash your butt with warm water. I want to know everything. For a moment, Su Mengqing was dumbfounded. She knew that most men were perverts, but she didn't expect this guy to be so perverted that he even wanted to know such a secret. She really couldn't figure out what Ding Meng was up to, so she had to do as he said. The next scene in the living room was a little awkward. Su Mengqing first changed the interior of her lower body, and then chose a sexy bra to wear. Then she picked a shirt, a windbreaker, and high boots. Ding Meng stared at her the whole time. Su Mengqing's scalp was tingling. To be honest, Fang Zhenghao and Song Chun had never stared at her like this before. Any woman would feel uncomfortable being stared at like this. Especially after she finished changing, Ding Meng's eyes showed a satisfied look. Very good. I have remembered your physical characteristics. Su Mengqing was puzzled by his words. She really couldn't understand his strange behavior. If it were another man, he would have pounced on her and ravaged her. But this guy just stared at her and didn't do anything. He was simply a freak. In fact, Ding Meng didn't feel good watching her change her clothes either. His mouth was dry all the time. This woman was completely a stunner. Every part of her body was filled with the most primitive seduction. However, his strong mind controlled his desire very well. After another half an hour of makeup, Su Mengqing returned to her glamorous celebrity image. Okay, that's enough. Ding Meng waved his hand again, and everything in the villa returned to normal. You should know the specific location of the engagement ceremony, right? Su Mengqing heaved a sigh of relief. Ding Meng finally stopped staring at her. I know. The specific location is in the flying star city of the Celestial Wolf Corps, Su Mengqing quickly replied. Ding Meng frowned and said, Why is it set in such a strange place? Not only was he surprised, even Su Mengqing was very surprised when she received the news. Although the Bai family didn't pay much attention to the marriage between Bai Qingyun and Dai, they didn't need to arrange it in a mercenary territory in outer space, right? After all, the Bai family was a famous family in Blue Pole Star City. The Dai family was a little inferior, but both families were big families. At the very least, the location should be set in a more magnificent or landmark building, right? Why was it set in the Flying Star City? Did they deliberately make it so shabby? Su Mengqing sighed faintly. Actually, this was not the Bai family's idea, but the Dai family's initiative. Ding Ming was even more surprised, but he also remembered that Yin Fengwei of the Celestial Wolf Corps seemed to have been in contact with the Dai family many years ago. It made sense that the engagement ceremony was set in the Flying Star City. After all, the environment in the Flying Star City was quite good. Su Meiqing sighed even more heavily. Actually, it's not like that. Miss Dai's ex was Ding Ming, but unfortunately, Ding Ming died in an accident many years ago. Ding Ming asked calmly, "What does this have to do with Ding Ming?" "It has to do with him," Su Mengqing said seriously. "This Miss Dai has been unwilling to accept the fact that Ding Ming is dead. I heard that she is still waiting for him to come back, but unfortunately, she's been targeted by Bai Qingyun." Ding Ming said, "Judging from your tone, it seems that this Bai Qingyun is not a good person." Su Mengqing immediately showed a disgusted expression. What can he do? If it weren't for his good reincarnation, he would just be a fly. Ding Ming said, "But does Miss Dai still want to marry him?" There was a trace of sadness in Su Mengqing's eyes. "If she doesn't marry him, I'm afraid that the Dai family will be in big trouble. At least she can marry him, and at least she won't be reduced to a plaything." Ding Ming said, "So Miss Dai was forced to marry him?" Su Mengqing sighed and said, "I heard that Miss Dai and Ding Ming met in the Flying Star City, so her last request was to hold the engagement ceremony in the Flying Star City." She understood Dai Yi's feelings very well. After so many years, Ding Ming might not be able to come back. Even if she was going to marry someone else, she had to choose the place where she had fallen in love with him. At the very least, it would be a souvenir. This was the last bit of consolation in her despair. She had thought that Ding Ming wouldn't understand the reason, but Ding Ming couldn't help laughing at this moment. "Good place, good choice." Su Mengqing looked at him in surprise. "What's so good about it?" Ding Ming shook his head with a smile. "You don't understand." Of course, Su Mengqing didn't understand. After her explanation, Ding Ming immediately knew where Dai Yi had chosen the specific location of the engagement ceremony. He even knew the most precise coordinates immediately. If the engagement ceremony was really held in the Blue Pole Star City, Ding Ming would inevitably feel a little restrained. After all, if he used force in the city, it would alert the experts and intelligent police. Now that the ceremony was held in the Flying Star City, it was simply Ding Ming's home ground. He was very familiar with every blade of grass and tree there. This was really the arrangement of God. Chapter 609. The Flying Star City was still the same as before. It was still the dreamy city in the fairy tale world. Number 6 in the western suburbs was still the same 3-story, exquisite villa. It was located on a small hill full of flowers. Standing in the courtyard of the villa and looking into the distance, there was an endless ocean in front of them. It was as blue as a beautiful gemstone. A bright red carpet had been laid out on the lush green grass, and a long-legged girl was sitting on an elegant white bench. Her appearance was outstanding, and her hair was tied up high into a cloud-like bun, which made her oval face even more charming and moving. Moreover, she was wearing a pure white and sacred wedding dress. Under the shade of the peach blossoms and the color of the sea and sky, there was an indescribable, breathtaking beauty. However, the girl's face was very pale, as if she was enduring some kind of pain. Although there was heavy makeup between her eyebrows, there was still a trace of haggardness. At least, the blood vessels in her eyes had not completely disappeared. Most importantly, she was too cold. It was not the coldness in her temperament, but a kind of unhappiness in her face. This person was Dai. On the green grass by the hillside, the servants were busy. Dai was lost in thought as she looked at the busy crowd. She was not alone. On such a good day, her best friends Aaron and Su Qianqian had been accompanying her. However, looking at the expressions of the two, there was not a trace of joy on their faces. Regarding this marriage, Aaron and Su Qianqian stood on the side of their best friends. They were not just a little bit disgusted with the Bai family, but there was nothing they could do. Dai Yi was lost in thought as she looked at the sea. Su Mengqing did not guess wrong. Dai Yi first fell in love with Ding Meng here. At that time, Ding Meng killed Huang Long and carried her as he swung his sword. The place was still the same, but the person was not the same person. At this time, a man in a suit walked over from the courtyard of the villa. The man's appearance and figure were very ordinary. If it was not for the expensive suit and shiny leather shoes, this person could really be described as ugly. Not only was he ugly, but he also looked very wretched. His eyes were always squinting. This person was the founder of the Yuanda group, Bai Qingyan. Wife. Bai Qingyan walked over with a smile. In fact, he and Dai Yi weren't just classmates during the Starlight era. Moreover, the relationship between the two families wasn't bad. They also had dealings with each other in Blue Pole Star City. It was just that their friendship wasn't deep. After all, the Dai family and the Bai family weren't on the same level. When Ding Meng stood out in the Starlight exam, almost everyone thought that a genius was born. As Dai Yi's boyfriend, the future of the Dai family was also promising. Who knew that the MV expedition would rush into the wormhole, and Ding Meng would never return? Bai Qingyun's mind became active again. He had been drooling over Dai Yi's beauty for a long time, so he quickly launched a fierce pursuit. Unfortunately, Dai Yi didn't even look him in the eye. She rejected him again and again. After being rejected so many times, he became angry and officially found someone to propose marriage to the Dai family. The situation on the Dai family's side wasn't optimistic. Dai Ranjun was at the critical moment of her promotion, and the Dai family's main industry was tourism-related hotels, restaurants, entertainment, and other tertiary industries. If they hadn't maintained contact with the Bai family all these years, the two sides would definitely be competitors. If the Dai family rejected, it wouldn't be a simple loss. It would hurt their foundation. However, if they agreed, not only would they advance by leaps and bounds, but they could also connect with the Starlight Corporation. As long as Dai Yi's grandfather, Dai Mingrong, wasn't an idiot, he should know what to choose. However, Dai Yi herself wasn't happy. Especially when she heard this title, she was even more annoyed. Her face was cold, and she didn't even care about Bai Qingyan. In the years that Ding Meng had left, not only did Dai Yi's cultivation not stop, her speed was even astonishing. Half a year ago, she had already become a high-level combat master. The Dai family was probably afraid that she would stubbornly resist, so not only did they continue to persuade her day and night, Dai Yi's big brother, Dai Yu, had even injected quite a few source bodies into her, afraid that she would carelessly make a move and ruin their plans. Therefore, Dai Yi's expression was not very good. Not only had she not recovered her strength, she was also enduring intense pain. Yao Manru's position among Dai Ranjuan's wives wasn't high, and after the Bai family proposed marriage, the research institute was closed down, leaving behind an apprentice, Ding Wenhe, to guard it. Moreover, he was the kind of guard who didn't have a single cent, while Yao Manru herself was placed under house arrest. As for when she would be released, that would depend on Dai Yi's performance. Wife, the guests are all here. It's almost time. It's already 14:50, and we have to enter in half an hour. Bai Qingyan reminded. Dai Yi still had a cold face and didn't reply. Aaron helplessly said, Bai Qingyan, go and greet the guests first. We still have to do Xiao Yi's hair. Bai Qingyan smiled and swept his gaze over Dai Yi's body. Dai Yi's biggest advantage over other women was her pair of white and long legs. Every time he saw these legs, Bai Qingyun would feel a certain part of his body uncontrollably change, and the heat in his heart would rush straight to his head. This was also the reason why he had always liked Dai Yi. Today was the day of the engagement ceremony. Once the ceremony was over, she would naturally become his second wife. He had made up his mind that he would spend the night in the villa in the Flying Star City. He would rub her long legs against him at least 7 times. Thinking about that, Bai Qingyan was so excited that he rubbed his hands together. His first wife wasn't bad either, but she was the eldest granddaughter of another family. She only married him for the sake of benefits, but after marriage, she was too cold in a certain aspect and couldn't satisfy him at all. His goal was to conquer a goddess-like beauty like Dai He was still fantasizing when a servant carrying a tray bumped into him. The tray immediately fell, and the exquisite drinks scattered all over the ground. I'm sorry, young Master Bai." The maid was frightened and quickly bowed her head to apologize. If it was any other time, with Bai Qingyun's temper, he would have directly kicked him away. Did he not look where he was going? However, since Dai was present, he naturally had to maintain a good demeanor. "Forget it. Just be careful in the future. Why did you bring these things over? We're about to enter." The maid squatted on the ground and carefully tidied up the drinks. "I brought some drinks over." These drinks were calming tea, a specialty of the Jifan family. When Dai first came to Flying Star City, Ding Meng, that country bumpkin, drank dozens of bottles of calming tea in one go. At first, Dai was somewhat disdainful, but later she felt that Ding Meng was very cute. Now, seeing the familiar packaging, Dai Yi's heart was filled with endless nostalgia and sadness. Bai Qingyun frowned and said, "The ceremony is about to begin. Aren't you causing trouble?" The maid didn't dare to raise her head at all. "Then I'll bring them back." At this time, Dai said, "Bring them over. I'm a little thirsty." Bai Qingyun immediately smiled and changed his words. Okay. My wife has the final say. I'll listen to everything you say." If someone who didn't know saw this scene, they would think that this couple was very loving. The maid moved skillfully and placed the calming tea on the small table one by one. Looking at her attentive look, Dai was somewhat curious. "Hello." The maid was well trained. She immediately stood aside and bowed her head respectfully. "What can I do for you, Miss Dai?" Dai frowned slightly. "I feel that you look very familiar. It's as if I've seen you somewhere before, but I can't remember where." The maid lowered her head even more. "Miss Dai, I've been working in Flying Star City. My duty is to maintain the normal use of the villa area in the western suburbs." Dai said, "What's your name?" If there were experts present at this moment, they would definitely notice the unknown coldness in the maid's eyes. "Miss Dai, my name is Lu Fei." "Oh, I see." Dai's expression didn't seem to change. Obviously, she hadn't remembered this person. "Go to your work." Lu Fei left respectfully. Aaron and Su Qianqian began to touch up Dai Yi's makeup again. To the Bai clan and Dai clan, today was a joyous occasion. However, to Dai and the other two, this was not a good day. It was simply an execution ground. Therefore, after Bai Qingyun and Lu Fei left, the three of them sank into a gloomy and oppressive atmosphere. Aaron really wanted to say something to comfort the two sisters, but she didn't know what to say many times. At this moment, any words would seem pale and powerless. Suddenly, Su Qianqian spoke in surprise. "Why is there an extra necklace? Sister Lin, is this yours?" Aaron turned her head and saw Su Qianqian pick up a strange necklace from the grass. The necklace's chain was made of ordinary material, but it was tied to a small dark gold blade. The blade was in the shape of a crescent moon and had a twisted arc. It looked strange, cold, and mysterious. "How can this be a girl's necklace?" Aaron took the necklace. "Huh, there are words on it? Let me see. What fortune is there in gathering? What sorrow is there in parting? What joy is there in life? What bitterness is there in death? I think it's a poem." These few words immediately pulled Dai back to reality from her thoughts. She snatched the necklace almost immediately. After carefully examining it, her breathing immediately quickened, and her chest rose and fell violently. This wasn't a necklace at all. It was Ding Meng's hero's knife. She was confident that she wasn't mistaken. Dai suddenly remembered that before Ding Meng left, he had specially passed the hero's knife to Meng Yan. This knife actually appeared here. Could it be that Meng Yan had come? She immediately reacted. Wasn't that maid's name Lu Fei? The maid that Meng Yan had disguised herself as was also called Lu Fei. Could it be that Meng Yan had already snuck into this place and left the knife here under the pretext of delivering drinks? However, this wasn't the most important point. When Dai had confessed to Ding Meng, she had said that the knife could be made into a necklace. Other than herself and Ding Meng, there was absolutely no third person who knew about this. Now, the knife had really been made into a necklace, and it was even personally delivered by Meng Yan. The only person who could have ordered Meng Yin to take such a risk was Ding Meng. Suddenly, He felt her heart beating faster than ever before. She had a strong intuition that Ding Meng was back. Xiaoyi, what's wrong? Aaron obviously sensed the great change in Dai Yi's mood. Dai Yi stood up abruptly, and her whole body seemed to glow in an instant. Come, let's go. Go? Go where? Aaron and Su Qianqian were puzzled. Dai Yi's expression was very confident. Of course, we're going to the tea stage in the courtyard to prepare for the ceremony. Aaron and Su Qianqian were stunned. What was going on? Was Dai Yi so shocked that she lost her mind? Why did her attitude change so quickly? Chapter 610. The sun was shining, the sky was blue, and the peach trees in the western suburbs of the Flying Star City were in full bloom. The birds were singing and the flowers were fragrant. Such a beautiful scenery was not only pleasing to the eyes, but also made the guests who had been living in the steel jungle for a long time feel very comfortable. This was indeed a day worth celebrating. The courtyard of Villa Number 6 had been transformed into a water catwalk in the past 2 days. It was like a fashionable and bright stage had been built on top of a blue swimming pool. The surrounding scenery was all expensive materials that had been airlifted from the Federation. The rose rain had been sprinkling down from the sky. Coupled with the crystal light simulation system, the entire scene was like a dreamlike palace. It was as enchanting as a fairyland. Such a water stage was naturally divided into 4 areas: north, south, east, and west. The Bai family was seated in the north. Among them, Bai Nanhao and his wife were the leaders. Behind the couple, there was a group of people with extraordinary bearings. Among them, the most eye-catching was a woman. The woman was beautiful and could be said to be not inferior to today's bride, Dai Yi. She was dressed in expensive and luxurious clothes. The key was that kind of rich and threatening temperament. Although she was sitting behind the main seat, her every movement was filled with the aura of a superior. There was quite a majesty between her eyebrows. This person was Xing Hong Group's second daughter, Ling Xingwen. Standing behind her with his hands behind his back was a middle-aged man with an extraordinary bearing. This person was also an executive of Xing Hong Group, Bai Nanhao's third brother, Bai Nanjing. Usually, Bai Nanjing rarely attended such occasions. However, among the several siblings, he and Bai Nanhao had a very deep relationship since childhood. This time, he came to support his fourth brother, and he himself was Ling Xingwen's favorite general. Therefore, he wanted to attend the engagement ceremony. Ling Xingwen also gave him enough face and took the initiative to come. Ling Xingwen's lineup was quite big. All the executives of Xing Hong Group and Lan Yu came. Most of the bodyguards were outside the courtyard. Only a few experts stayed in the venue as personal guards. Ling Xingwen's right wing sat a middle-aged man with a gloomy face. This was her cousin, Song Chun, the boss of Xing Hong Entertainment. However, his attention fell on the opposite side of the stage. On the south side of the stage were the Dai family members. Compared to the few people on the Bai family side, almost all of the Dai family members were present. Dai Mingrong and his wife sat at the head of the stage. Dai Yi held her father's arm and stood quietly on the side of the stage, waiting for the ceremony to begin. On the east and west sides of the venue were the guests who had been invited. Among them, the east side received the most attention because all the dazzling stars in the entertainment industry had come. As for the outskirts of the courtyard, those were the mercenaries of the Skywolf Corps. People like Yin Feng Wei did not have the qualifications to enter the stage. They could only watch from afar with their daughter, Yin Jie, at the entrance of the villa. However, he did not complain. From the bottom of his heart, Yin Feng Wei was filled with gratitude towards the Dai family. Who would have thought that the Dai family would actually choose to hold the engagement ceremony in the Flying Star City? This was simply the greatest favor to the Heavenly Wolf Army. For this ceremony, the entire army had been busy for more than a month. He had also put in a lot of effort. However, he was still worried. Feng, have you arranged for the reporters? A man in a suit beside him looked a little absent-minded. Boss, I arranged for all of them to go play in the city last night, especially those entertainment and gossip reporters. I just patrolled again, and none of them are here. This man was the vice commander of the Sky Wolf Corps, Chung Rifeng. Thinking back, he was tough enough to almost kill Ding Meng and Dai Yi back then. Every time he thought about this, Chung Rifeng would secretly break out in a cold sweat. Today's female lead was Miss Dai Yi. Fortunately, he had returned alive from that era. Of course, with Miss Dai's current status, there was no need for her to be so calculated with him, right? While he was thinking, his eyes secretly glanced at the east side, which was currently attracting everyone's attention. Among the many stars, Qin Zhongyi, Su Mengqing, and Yi Jingyan were two famous. In fact, Chung Rifeng was not only a fan of Qin Zhongyi, but also a fan of Su Mengqing. This was the first time he had seen these two idols in real life. Just like when she attended many grand events, heavenly Queen Qin's attire with a light gray sweater with slanted shoulders. Half of her shoulder was exposed, and there was a sparkling four-chestnut diamond shoulder accessory on her shoulder. Thus, she had a different kind of style, making her the focus of everyone's attention and not stealing the bride's limelight. Compared to Qin Zhongyi's unique style, Su Mengqing was more strange. Among the female stars in the entertainment industry, Su Mengqing was famous for her dressing up. But today, Su Mengqing was wearing a short black leather jacket, blue jeans, and knee-high boots. There was a large metal belt around her waist, and there was a leather cap on her head that looked like a beret. Her long brown curly hair was slanted to the left. This was the image of a British cowgirl. Of course, this did not affect the impression she gave others. The impression was that she was valiant, capable, and free. But here was the problem. Su Mengqing had always walked the sexy and mature route, but today she was wrapped up so tightly. Was she really afraid of stealing the limelight of the female lead? Moreover, Su Mengqing had always been elegant and stood with a smile on these occasions. But now, not only was there no smile on her face, she was frowning slightly, as if she was not very happy. Today's host was the big star Long Qi. Dressed in a formal suit, he had already walked to the crystal bridge on the stage. He looked around with a face full of joy, and his voice was particularly excited. Distinguished guests who have come from afar, friends and family, how do you do? The sun is shining brightly today. The sound of singing and laughter can be heard everywhere. It is a blessing from the heavens. I am very honored to have been invited here to host the engagement ceremony of Miss Dai Yi and Mr. Baiqinya. Let us witness and share the joy of this newlywed couple and spend a very happy and unforgettable day together. As his voice fell, the audience immediately broke into applause. When the applause died down, Long Qi was about to continue speaking when a discordant voice suddenly rang out. Long Qi, why are you the only host today? Generally speaking, one wedding host was the most suitable. If there were two, then the requirements for the coordination between the two would be very high. Of course, for a wedding like the Bai families, one male and one female host would be able to show the level of coordination. Long Qi turned his head to look and saw that the person who had spoken was actually Su Mengqing. He immediately felt that it was strange. The process of this kind of engagement ceremony had been arranged long ago. What was she doing interrupting it this time? Was she trying to make her presence known? In fact, he was not the one who found it strange the most. The group of people from the Star Rainbow group in the north were the ones who found it strange. Su Mengqing was an artist under Star Rainbow group, and was usually the one who knew how to act. Why was she interrupting today? Long Qi's good professionalism made him decide not to answer this question. So he continued to speak. First, let me briefly introduce the basic situation of this newlywed couple. They are both from Blue Pole Star City. Mr. Bai Qingyun is the founder and president of Yuanda Group, and Miss Dai Yi is the apple of Mr. Dai Ranjun's eye. They met at Starlight University, got to know each other, and fell in love with each other. They voluntarily decided to hold the engagement ceremony today. Nonsense. Su Mengqing spoke again and interrupted him mercilessly. Got to know each other, fell in love with each other? You have a nerve to say that? How did they fall in love with each other? Tell me about it. She really stirred up 1,000 waves with one stone. Everyone in the courtyard showed an incredulous look. What kind of crazy person was Su Mengqing? Bai Qingyun, who was in the north, immediately turned his head to look at Song Chun. The meaning in his eyes was obvious. This Su girl is just your whore. What do you mean by this? Song Chun immediately looked at Su Mengqing. Unfortunately, Su Mengqing ignored him. At this time, Hongyi had already received the instructions from the male bodyguard behind her. She quietly stepped forward and gently grabbed Su Mengqing's wrist from behind. Her purpose was very simple. Regardless of whether Su Mengqing was crazy or not, she had to first take Su Mengqing away from the venue. However, when her hand touched Su Mengqing, an invisible force quickly rebounded from Su Mengqing's wrist, which actually bounced her hand away. Hongyi was shocked on the spot. Could it be that Miss Su is a powerful warrior? How come we didn't notice it for half a year? Her little action didn't escape the eyes of the experts present. For a moment, many people curiously looked at Su Mengqing. At this time, Su Mengqing actually dared to defy universal condemnation and walked directly onto the crystal bridge. Moreover, her walking posture was very strange. It was not the usual flirtatious and swaying walk, but the kind that was very straight and very stiff. In fact, many experts had noticed it. Judging from Su Mengqing's steps, her lower body was very steady. If she said that she wasn't a combat-type origin ability user, no one would believe it. Bai Nanjing and Song Chun exchanged glances. Their eyes were full of surprise. What kind of situation was this? Long Qi was still in a state of shock. Su Mengqing had already come to his side and mercilessly reprimanded. She voluntarily decided to hold the engagement ceremony. In front of so many people, you are really lying with your eyes wide open. You should ask Miss Dai if she was willing to do so. Long Qi was already dumbfounded. No matter how high his professionalism was, he had never encountered such a situation before. He didn't know how to respond. This Su Mengqing was like a different person. Her attitude was aggressive. At this time, Bai Nanhao had no choice but to stand up. He politely shouted, "Miss Su, today is my Bai family's big day. After the ceremony is over, I will toast Miss Su with a few cups of good wine to celebrate Miss Su's great fortune in recent years. Now, I ask Miss Su to go and rest first." With his status, to be able to speak in such an amiable tone, it was quite restrained. After all, it was an engagement ceremony. No one wanted such a mess. They all hoped that it would proceed smoothly, because Su Mengqing was after all a person of Xinghong entertainment. As a result, a shocking scene appeared. Su Mengqing didn't even bother to pay attention to him. She just stared at Long Qi and said word by word, "I asked you to ask Miss Dai. Now you ask for me. Is she willing to do so?" Long Qi was so frightened that he took 2 steps back. Su Mengqing's eyes were too sharp, causing his heart to feel a kind of unprecedented fear. "Look at you, a big star." The corner of Su Mengqing's mouth revealed a trace of a strange smile. Song Chun couldn't sit still. He suddenly stood up and scolded, "Slut, get out of here." Su Mengqing also suddenly turned her head. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared at Song Chun. Song Chun couldn't help but take 2 steps back. His expression was extremely surprised. At this moment, the people present finally realized that something was wrong. As the boss of Xinghong Entertainment, Song Chun wasn't an ordinary origin ability user. He was actually persuaded by a small gaze. This Su Mengqing definitely had a big problem. Chapter 6:11. The venue was still beautiful and romantic, but the atmosphere had changed. It had become indescribably strange and awkward. In most people's imaginations, there was only one possibility for this big star in the entertainment circle to jump out at this time, and that was to snatch the spotlight from today's female lead. It was no wonder that many people were gossiping. You, an artist from the Starbao Group, have always been mature and steady. What other reason could there be for you to suddenly jump out to snatch the spotlight, other than having an affair with Bai Qinyan? At this moment, seeing that the guests were discussing animatedly, Bai Qinyan knew that he could no longer remain calm. He slowly stood up and said with a calm face, "Miss Su, I believe you have heard my father's words clearly. If you can go to Villa number 2 to rest for a while, not only will I be extremely grateful to you, but you will also gain the friendship of my Bai family." This time, Su Mengqing finally responded. She sneered and said, "Do I need you to be grateful to me? Who do you think you are? Why don't you look in the mirror? What kind of bird do you look like? You want to marry Miss Di with your looks? I feel disgusted just looking at you. You're simply a toad wanting to eat swan meat. Dream on, you." Bai Qingyun was furious. This was what he was most angry about. Usually, no one would say anything about him. It wasn't that others didn't think so, but that they didn't dare to say anything because of his status. However, now that Su Mengqing had mercilessly pointed it out, Dai Yi, who was standing at the south side of the crystal bridge, couldn't help but reveal a smile. Su Mengqing had indeed spoken her mind. In this interstellar era, the first thing that mattered was one's appearance. Although most men didn't have plastic surgery, Bai Qingyun's appearance was indeed shabby and below the passing line. Dai Yi's heart was pounding, but she was even more moved. This was because other than her mother, Yao Manru, this was the first person to stand up for her. Seeing that Su Mengqing was stubborn and that the situation was about to get out of control, Dai Ranjun couldn't hold it in anymore and said in a deep voice, "Miss Su, although my Dai family isn't considered a famous family, you're publicly causing trouble on stage. This will damage your image as a big star, right?" Su Mengqing sneered and turned around. "It's not your turn yet, but you jumped out first. The most shameless person here is you. Look at yourself. Do you treat Miss Dai as your own daughter? No, right? You should be using her as a bargaining chip to seek benefits for your lousy family. In order to force your own daughter to submit, you actually injected an origin body into her body. What father would treat his own daughter like that?" As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd immediately went into an uproar. There was actually such an inside story. Was the Dai family a bootlicker to this extent? Dai Ranjuan's face was ashen, but he did not want to argue with the woman. Instead, he gave a slight glance to someone in the distance. Yin Fengwei, who was at the entrance of the villa, understood and knew that it was useless to say anything now. They had to think of a way to get Su Mengqing down. This kind of rough work had to be done by the Sky Wolf Army. Therefore, Cheng Rifeng slowly walked onto the crystal bridge and politely gestured, "Miss Su, please." Su Mengqing smiled like a flower. "What do you want me to do?" Cheng Rifeng's face darkened. "Please leave. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude to our esteemed guest." Su Mengqing laughed disdainfully. "A shrimp like you is not qualified to invite me." Cheng Rifeng did not say anything and slowly walked towards her. Su Mengqing suddenly grabbed Long Qi, who was standing at the side in a daze, and then pushed him out. It was not known what had happened, but Cheng Rifeng had not been able to dodge, and Long Qi's body had crashed right into him with a loud crash. Plop! Plop! Both of them fell into the pool below the stage at the same time. The image of a drowned rat, especially Long Qi. He was now no longer a popular lover, but a hungry dog that had jumped into the water. Su Mengqing raised her head and let out a string of bell-like laughter. "Hurry up and thank me for showing mercy." Bai Qingyun could not stand it anymore. "Su Mengqing, do you know what you are doing?" Su Mengqing hooked her jade finger. "If you're not convinced, come up. I want to settle this score today." Songshan also flew into a rage. "Bitch, are you trying to rebel? Men, take her down." The male bodyguard and Hong Yi of the east side were already prepared. The two of them directly jumped up from the guest seats and flew out like sharp arrows. The two of them rushed towards the crystal bridge from left and right. Su Mengqing sneered and said, "Good timing." After saying that, she first swept her right foot, and her high boot hit the male bodyguard's face. Then her left foot, Thomas, did a roundhouse kick, sending Hong Yi flying. The male bodyguard also fell into the pool, while Hong Yi flew directly towards the north side seats. It looked like she was going to hit Song Chun. Of course, it was impossible for Song Chun to be hit. The few old men in suits behind him quickly rushed forward and caught Hong Yi together. This caused a huge uproar. When did Su Mengqing become an Origin Energy General? At this moment, countless experts attacked from all directions. Waves of invisible aura and pressure smashed towards her. Unfortunately, Su Mengqing acted as if nothing had happened. She slowly turned around and stared quietly at Dai Yi. "Miss Dai, are you willing to marry someone like Bai Qingyun?" At this moment, she suddenly felt a strong surge of origin energy rushing towards her. The source body in her body disintegrated one after another. As soon as the shackles were removed, she immediately felt refreshed. Dai knew that strong reinforcements had arrived. She took a deep breath and said resolutely, "You want me to marry a fly?" "Absolutely not." Dai Ranjun, who was standing to the side, couldn't believe his ears. He was so angry that he raised his hand, looking like he was going to slap Dai. "What nonsense are you talking about? You unfilial daughter." However, he couldn't slap her. His hand was fixed in the air. Su Mengqing said coldly, "I'll give you half an hour to release Miss Dai's mother. If I don't see her, then don't blame me for being merciful." "Impudent!" Someone in the south side seats roared angrily. At the same time, he flew over like a hammer. Just based on his speed and aura, he was definitely much stronger than Hong Yi and Hong Yi. This person was Dai Yi's older brother, Dai Yu. He was also the strongest member of the Dai family's younger generation. Dai Yu hadn't arrived yet, but two long and beautiful blades were already slashing towards her head. This was the Federation's classic technique, the blazing sun battle runes. Looking at the bright red color of these blades, it proved that Dai Yu's attainments in origin energy were quite impressive. Su Mengqing's expression was extremely ugly. "Do you want to die?" Dai could already sense that Su Mengqing's aura had suddenly increased by a large amount. This wasn't something that Dai Yu could withstand. She hurriedly said, "Don't hurt my brother." Su Mengqing didn't make a move. She allowed the two blades to strike her head, and then there was no more, and the blazing sun battle runes disappeared like a magic trick. As for what technique she had used, no one present could tell. Su Mengqing stretched out her hand again. Two blades miraculously appeared in her palms, and they were even spinning in circles. Dai was dumbfounded. In his eyes, the Su Mengqing on the crystal bridge was no longer an entertainment celebrity. She was an unfathomable expert. With a bang, the two sabers suddenly exploded on their own, turning into countless dazzling origin energy stars. It was like a large net that directly enveloped the Starbao Corporation. Ding, 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 ding. Many golden origin energy steel shields were placed in front of Ling Xingwen and the others like a city wall. The four men in suits worked together to block the flying stars. Surprisingly, the entire venue was not in chaos. Some of the guests were surprised, some were curious, and some were dumbfounded. In any case, no one left. Everyone was going to watch the show today. Ling Xingwen frowned slightly. She didn't expect that someone would dare to attack her. "Is this an artist of Starbao Group?" Someone immediately replied, "Second miss. Let me clean up the mess." Ling Xingwen glanced at the person and nodded silently. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Mr. Teng." This person was none other than Teng Ma, the bodyguard of the transit string. He was a high-level warrior of the Starbao Group's headquarters. His strength and background were quite profound. Su Mengqing glanced at Teng Ma, who was slowly walking up the crystal bridge, and said coldly, "On account of Miss Ling, I'll spare your life this time." Teng Ma laughed disdainfully. "You sure talk big." Su Mengqing laughed again. "I really do talk big because I only need one breath to kill you." Teng Ma stood still. "Come, I'll have to trouble you to blow. I think you're just bragging." Su Mengqing retracted her smile and took a deep breath. 3 seconds later, she really opened her mouth and blew out a mouthful of air. This was a visible cloud of air. It was actually a dazzling gold, like the rays of dawn rising from the horizon. Teng Ma was originally very disdainful, but when he saw this cloud of golden air, his pupils shrank. He didn't know what kind of martial skills Su Mengqing had used, but he could feel the powerful origin energy aura coming from this cloud of air. It wasn't just a cloud of air. It was a mountain that he couldn't overcome or resist. The golden air brushed past Teng Ma's face and immediately dissipated. However, Teng Ma raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, his body tilted and he fell into the swimming pool. At this moment, the people of the Starbao Group all stood up in shock. Even those who didn't know what was good for them should know that Su Mengqing was definitely a top-notch expert. She could blow a high-level warlord down with just a breath. With this kind of strength, she wasn't here to interrupt. She was determined to disrupt this engagement ceremony. Only then did Bai Nanhao's expression become serious. He took 2 steps forward. I misjudged. I didn't expect Miss Su to be a hidden expert. However, I'm still very curious. Why does Miss Su want to go against my Bai family? Miss Su should know that this isn't a wise move. Su Mengqing sneered. It's not that I want to go against you. It's you who are courting death. You dare to offend my boss. The crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. My God, you're already so strong. Who's your boss? For a moment, everyone was extremely curious. Dai Yi silently watched Su Mengqing. Her heart was beating to the limit. She was now at least 70% sure that all of this was arranged by Ding Ming. Ding Ming had really returned. Bai Nanhao said again, Excuse me, Miss Su, who is your boss? Unfortunately, Su Mengqing's answer made Dai Yi slightly disappointed. You don't deserve to know my boss. When you know, you'll have to pay the price. No matter how good Bai Nanhao's temper was, he couldn't bear it. Is that so? Today, I'll meet you. Let me see how many hidden dragons and crouching tigers there are. Chapter 6:12. Bai Nanhao seemed to be standing steadily, but in Su Mengqing's eyes, he still had some tricks up his sleeves. This was because Bai Nanhao's origin ability was completely concentrated on his right arm, and he controlled it very well. He didn't let his aura burst out in all directions, otherwise it would have affected the surrounding guests. Su Mengqing laughed again. You have some strength, but it's still not enough. Bai Nanhao didn't reply. His essence, energy, and spirit were all concentrated on his right hand. Suddenly, he fiercely struck out with his palm, and a light blue handprint appeared in the air. This was the origin energy astral wind produced by his palm. To be able to cultivate this thing, he must be an ironclad battle monarch level character. The faces of the surrounding guests changed. This was a move that wanted to kill someone. For a moment, the crowd became restless. This was because Su Mengqing hadn't been ruthless in her previous moves. At least a few people who had fallen into the pool were still alive. Only Long Qi had fainted, which meant that she still had some misgivings. But for her to use such a big move as soon as she arrived, this was a bit ruthless. This astral wind wasn't as simple as releasing origin energy because it floated very slowly. Even an ordinary person would be able to dodge it. However, Su Mengqing didn't dodge. She clearly knew that she couldn't dodge it because this was the Holy Grail Federation's high-star-ranked martial skill, Qing Yi Sacred Hands. It could be said that it was the super-strengthened version of the Holy Wall. Once you dodge or get close, the astral wind contained a powerful origin ability that would immediately be released, combining various attack forms, and even forming a cage to trap you to death. It was said that this martial skill was only practiced by top experts. She didn't expect Bai Nanhao to actually know it. The most important thing was that this palm-shaped astral wind emitted an ice-cold chill and berserk aura. This Bai Nanhao was actually a guy who dual cultivated in 2 elements. Su Mengqing didn't move. She kept looking at the astral wind with a sneer. This made Bai Nanhao somewhat impatient. He was waiting for Su Mengqing to make the first move, then he would have the confidence to take her down on the spot. But this damned woman just didn't move, as if she knew how powerful his move was. It's not too late to kneel and beg for mercy. I can let you go. Bai Nanhao sternly shouted. Su Mengqing looked as if she had heard the funniest joke in the world. A frog at the bottom of a well. It's a waste for this martial technique to fall into your hands. As soon as she finished speaking, she finally moved. At this moment, Dai Yi, Aaron, and Su Qianqian almost cried out in surprise. Su Mengqing leaped forward and soared into the air like a leaping carp or a swallow soaring through the clouds. Her attire and posture were indescribably smooth and elegant, pleasing to the eye. Next, Su Mengqing's handblade was formed. It was covered with a layer of dark blue plating, but it looked more like a bright flame. Bang! A loud explosion sound was heard, and the air was directly torn apart. Everyone could clearly see that the palm print formed by the Qing Yi divine hand was turned into nothingness by Su Mengqing's powerful handblade. In the next moment, Su Mengqing arrived in front of Bai Nanhao and chopped his shoulder blade. Pung, 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 pung. A series of rapid sounds rang out. These slight bursting sounds were actually emitted from Bai Nanhao's right arm. Everyone was once again stunned. Su Mengqing flashed back to her original position. She was so fast that even people's eyes couldn't follow her movements. Silence. A deathly silence. Everyone in the audience was shocked silly. Dad, how are you? Bai Qingyun was also overwhelmed with shock. Although he didn't know the consequences, he could feel that the powerful aura his father had condensed just a moment ago was gone. It was as if a mountain had collapsed in an instant. Bai Nanhao stared at Su Mengqing. I'm fine. He seemed to be calm, but in fact no one around him noticed that his slowly drooping arm was constantly trembling. The amplitude was not big, but the frequency was extremely high. It was simply out of his control. Only he knew how terrifying Su Mengqing was. That hand blade could be said to be perfect no matter if it was strength, speed, direction, or timing. The most frightening thing was that when it chopped his shoulder, all the bones in his right arm were immediately shattered. The 5 origin points were immediately extinguished. He was very clear that this kind of extinguishment would take at least a year to recover. During this period, he would need to consume all kinds of precious elixirs. In other words, Su Mengqing directly crippled his right arm that he was so proud of. A long-lost feeling rose in Bai Nanhao's heart. How many years had it been since he had experienced this kind of terrifying feeling? The deep fear of facing a super strong enemy. In the Southern District seats, Aaron and Su Qianqian opened their eyes wide and covered their mouths. Others had not seen this move of Su Mengqing, but they had. Aaron looked at Su Mengqing in disbelief. Her voice was trembling. Is it him? Dai's beautiful eyes flashed. Her face was full of smiles. Yes, this is Ding Meng's unique skill. The carp leaping over the dragon gate, a backhand blade. It was all about speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness. Only Ding Meng could cut so savagely. Su Mengqing was still wearing her Western cowboy style. She crossed her arms and shook her wavy hair. But now, no one felt that she was flirtatious. Everyone only felt a chill in their heart. Even Bai Nanhao was repelled by this woman. Su Mengqing smiled again. Boss Bai, I want to tell you something. Bai Nanhao was listening. He could not open his mouth. His whole arm was in so much pain that if he dared to open his mouth, it would immediately expose the fact that he was seriously injured. Su Mengqing sternly said, Misty is not something that your Bai family can touch. Seeing that your son did not offend Misty, I will spare you this time. If there's a next time, you should be clear about the consequences. Bai Nanhao's face was cold, and he did not make a sound. He did not dare to answer. If he really agreed to Su Mengqing's request, the Bai family's face today would be swept to the ground. The dignified Bai family was actually forced to be speechless by an entertainer of the entertainment circle. Bai Nanjing also did not make a sound. He knew that his 4th brother had always been steady. There must be something behind this. But Ling Xingwen finally spoke this time. Su Mengqing, you are my Star Rainbow's people. But now you're doing this. You are very good at acting. Su Mengqing sneered. Do you think your identity is very noble? Are you condescending to talk to me? Ling Xingwen's face sank. You have a lot of courage. You dare to injure Mr. Bai and disturb the ceremony. I now officially announce that you are no longer a member of my Star Rainbow group. Su Mengqing said, Is that important? I came here today to settle accounts with you. Hee. Ling Xingwen smiled disdainfully and looked at her contemptuously. With your identity, you came to settle accounts with me? Are you worthy? Su Mengqing smiled. Some accounts can't be settled with money. When these words came out, even the people of the Dai family were surprised. Did Su Mengqing go crazy and try to deal with the second miss of the Ling family? Ling Xingwen sneered and said, What accounts do you want to settle? Su Mengqing said, I came here today because I have a few things to ask you. Before Ling Xingwen answered, someone next to him immediately said, Shut up. Who do you think you are? You're just a promiscuous bitch. How dare you talk to the second miss in such a tone? Su Mengqing didn't say much. She slightly exerted force with her eyes, and the old man in a suit automatically flew from his seat and then fell into the pool with a plop. Su Mengqing was expressionless. Since Miss Ling used to treat my boss well, I'll spare your life. I've already spared many people's lives today. It seems that you think I'm easy to talk to? Seeing this scene, the old men in suits behind Ling Xingwen were all shocked. Su Mengqing had cultivated psychokinesis. It seemed that the level of her psychokinesis was not low. She is definitely not the real Su Mengqing. An old man leaned over to Ling Xingwen's ear and reminded him. Ling Xingwen took a deep breath and looked at Su Mengqing. Okay, ask. I will answer. When this sentence was said, the guests all around gasped. Su Mengqing could actually force the high and mighty second miss of the Ling family to lower herself. Today's engagement ceremony was simply too surprising. Su Mengqing said seriously, Fong Jinghao of the Green Arrow Corps, was he killed by Song Chun and by Qingli together? Ling Xingwen's expression did not change. He replied faintly, Fong Jinghao died in an accident. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Su Mengqing smiled. This time, the smile made people feel creepy. It seems that I was wrong. I thought you were a character and would be reasonable. I didn't expect you to not admit it. Ling Xingwen's face was very ugly. An accident is an accident. There is no such thing as admitting it or not. Su Mengqing's eyes fell on Bai Nanzheng. What about you? Do you also think it was an accident? Bai Nanzheng said in a deep voice. The second Mrs. Words are the golden rule. If she says it was an accident, then it must be an accident. Regarding this point, our Star Rainbow Corporation has also investigated. Fong Jinghao died in the Zirital Star Field because he accepted a bounty mission. The cause of death was that he was poisoned by the devouring star field. You can check this on the darknet, and you will know. Su Mengqing turned to Song Chen again. What about you? Do you also think it was an accident? Song Chen's eyes were filled with resentment. Bitch, you are really rebellious. You dare to betray our Star Rainbow Corporation? Su Mengqing raised her head and laughed. Okay, second miss of the Ling family thinks it was an accident. The vice president of Star Rainbow Entertainment also thinks it was an accident. The president of Star Rainbow Entertainment also thinks it was an accident. She suddenly stretched out her right hand and grabbed the air in front of her. Bai Qingyun, who was sitting on the seat, flew out of his chair without any warning and was sucked over. She reached out and grabbed his throat. Stop! Bai Nanhao and Bai Nanjing shouted at the same time. However, it was impossible for some people to stop. Su Mengqing's left hand grabbed Bai Qingyun's right arm and pulled fiercely. A terrifying scene happened. Bai Qingyun's entire arm was torn off by her. The blood spurted out from his shoulder like a high-pressure water gun. The entire stage was filled with a bloody mist, accompanied by Bai Qingyun's wail like a pig being slaughtered. This kind of pain was not something an ordinary person could endure. Many of the female guests at the scene closed their eyes and could not bear to watch any longer. This scene was really too brutal. Su Mengqing revealed a strange smile again. She directly threw the severed arm to Bai Nanhao. Everyone saw it. I was the one who removed this person's arm. This is definitely not an accident. However, I insist that it was an accident. If I say it was an accident, then it was an accident. Does anyone want to correct my statement? Seeing her acting as if nothing had happened in her self-righteous appearance, Ling Xingwen and the others were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. You're clearly twisting words and forcing logic. Bandit logic. Someone behind Ling Xingwen shouted again. Su Mengqing proudly said, Yes, I am a bandit logic. I am twisting words and forcing logic. If you're not convinced, then come over. Let me see how many more accidents will happen today. Bitch, go to hell. The old man probably had Jiang Gimi's fiery personality. He could not stand Su Mengqing's attitude. He got up and flew out from his seat. Chapter 613. The old man who flew out was obviously Ling Xingwen's personal bodyguard. As soon as he flew out, the sky was filled with afterimages and flashing shadows. It was obvious that he was an expert of the Lightspeed series. Strong winds immediately blew on the stage, causing the curtains to flutter. Even the water in the swimming pool was splashed. Many of the guests were dazzled by the old man's martial arts skills. Ling Xingwen and the others also had proud expressions on their faces. This person was Lung Wushang, an expert from the Starbao headquarters. He was an intermediate battle monarch and had always been loyal to Ling Xingwen. His specialty was not the various lightspeed martial arts skills, but the divine shadowless kick. It was a martial arts skill that was about the same level as the Qingyi divine hands. However, as the old saying goes, martial arts skills were martial arts skills, while actual combat was actual combat. In terms of actual combat, Su Mengqing was not weak at all. She did not even move in the face of the afterimages that filled the sky. Instead, she sneered disdainfully. Empty bravado, flashy but without substance. I thought you had some skills. Are you performing a dance for me? In terms of dancing skills, you're just showing off your slight skill in front of an expert. She had clearly guessed Lung Wushang's thoughts. All these fancy moves were useless. The true essence of the Lightspeed series lay in the final critical strike. Sure enough, as soon as she finished speaking, the afterimages that filled the sky disappeared. Lung Wushang's entire body descended. He was like a sharp arrow flying towards Su Mengqing. From where Dai, Yi, and Irene were standing, it wasn't a person in the barren wasteland that was flying towards them. It was a foot in the barren wasteland. The foot was flying towards them like a missile. With the sole of the boot as the center, the surrounding scenery and air were distorted. It was like a whirlpool that wanted to suck everything in. Was this foot going to explode? Or was it going to sweep away the audience? Dai, Yi, and the others were dumbfounded. If this foot was aimed at them, they really did not know what to do. Is this the realm of a battle monarch? Dai, Yi mumbled, his expression a little dazed. However, in the next moment, all of Lung Wusher's aura, waves, and illusions disappeared completely. Just as Su Mengqing was about to be kicked, Su Mengqing casually stretched out her hand and grabbed Lung Wusher's ankle. She twisted her wrist, and Lung Wusher's expression changed. His whole body fell onto the crystal bridge with a bang. It was a very embarrassing fall, just like a chicken whose claws were broken and fell to the ground. Ling Xingwen couldn't believe his eyes. All the guests were dumbfounded. Many of them knew Lung Wushang's strength, but he couldn't even last one move in front of Su Mengqing. Su Mengqing swung Lung Wushang up again and backhanded him with a chop on his right knee. Gotcha! This sound was painful to hear. What made people's hair stand on end was that Lung Wusher's right leg was broken in the opposite direction. You're only SOSO. How dare you shout in front of me with this kind of strength? Su Mengqing looked at him with disgust and kicked him into the pool. Scram! The air seemed to have frozen at this moment. The people from the Starbao Corporation also felt like they were suffocating. Su Mengqing raised her head and looked at Ling Xingwen again. This was clearly not an accident, but I insist that it was an accident. What do you think? Do you have any objections? How many battle monarchs does the Starbao Corporation have? I want to see if you can afford to lose them. Ling Xingwen felt all the blood in her body rushing to her head. How many years had it been? The second miss of the Ling family had never been forced like this. This Su Mengqing was completely challenging her authority. Isn't it just a refugee like Fang Jinghao who died? How dare you cripple a battle monarch of the Starbao Corporation? Ling Xingwen was furious. Su Mengqing had a strange expression. You think that Fang Jinghao is a refugee? He's worthless, so it doesn't matter if he dies. However, battle monarchs are very valuable. Don't you think so? So what? Ling Xingwen was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Very well. Su Mengqing reached out her right hand again and used her telekinesis to suck Lung Wushang out of the pool. This time, she didn't hold back. Bang! Her fist hit Lung Wushang's heart. Lung Wushang flew back. Everyone saw clearly that Lung Wushang's body was bent at a 90-degree angle. Even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. Su Mengqing sneered. In your eyes, Fang Jinghao is like a weed. You can kill him whenever you want. Similarly, this kind of bug is not even trash in my eyes. Killing him would dirty my hands. Why would I care about the feelings of an ant? Ling Xingwen had completely lost her mind. She almost screamed, "Kill her!" At this moment, At least 10 experts from the Starbow Corporation leaped into the air from all directions, each of them displaying their ultimate skills. Countless saber lights, sword shadows, and illusions of fists and kicks formed a rainbow of chaos in the air, completely enveloping Su Mengqing and the entire stage. The outside world couldn't see what was happening inside at all. However, just as everyone's light and illusions were about to surround Feng Xingjian, a streak of white light rose from the chaos. It was like a bolt of lightning that streaked across the night sky, and it was more like the orbital cannons on the starships. In that instant, the brilliance completely overshadowed the effects created by the martial arts techniques of these experts. Plop, plop, plop. Corpses were strewn all over the stage one after another. None of the corpses were headless. Looking up at Su Mengqing, who was on the bridge, she didn't seem to have moved. However, her belt was gone. It had turned into a long sword in her hand that was emitting a blue light. Blood was dripping from the tip of the sword. How did she do it? How did she take away so many people's heads? No one present could see clearly. Of course, to Su Mengqing, facing the combined attack of more than 10 Battle Monarch level experts was not something that could be dealt with simple punches and kicks. She had to use a weapon. At this moment, Ling Xingwen's anger and killing intent seemed to have been completely extinguished by a basin of ice water. This was the most elite force she had brought with her on this trip. Yet Su Mengqing had actually killed them all with a single slash. Could it be that Su Mengqing had already stepped into battle saint rank? The surrounding guests were no longer in the mood to watch the show. Many of them involuntarily retreated. Some even wanted to escape. Su Mengqing casually waved her hand again. Those who wanted to escape immediately fell down and quickly fell unconscious. The wristwatches on their hands also exploded one after another. Only a dozen battle monarchs died. It's a small matter. Su Mengqing looked at her longsword. They're all trash. It doesn't matter. She looked at Ling Xingwen again. You think you're high and mighty. Green Arrow's people are worthless. I also think I'm high and mighty. You Star Rainbow's people are just like grass in my eyes. You're not even worth grass. Are you convinced now? Ling Xingwen's face was as pale as a dead person. She was definitely not convinced. However, in the current situation, she had no more martial power to use. Even if she joined forces with Bainan Zheng and Bainan Hao, she would not be any slower than these battle monarchs. This was because these elders were all elites nurtured by Star Rainbow. They were definitely stronger than her. Walala. Su Mengqing's long sword turned back into a belt and returned to her slender waist. No one would have thought that this belt was actually a killing weapon. You come here. Su Mengqing beckoned to Song Chen with her finger. Song Chen no longer had the arrogance from before. He walked onto the crystal bridge with a face full of fear. He was already scared out of his wits. Su Mengqing could kill a dozen experts with a single sword. For a battle monarch like him, even if there were hundreds or thousands of them, it would still not be enough. Su Mengqing's high boots gently picked up a wrist blade on the ground, and it fell at his feet. Did you kill Fang Jinghao? Song Chen knelt down with a plop. His expression looked like he was crying. I really didn't kill him. Su Mengqing looked at him coldly. You didn't do it yourself, but he was killed by you. Cut off your own right hand, and I'll let it go this time. Song Chen looked at the bloody wrist blade on the ground in shock. After hesitating for a long time, he suddenly gritted his teeth and picked up the wrist blade. With a kacha sound, he cut his own wrist. Blood immediately spurted out like an arrow. He was in so much pain that tears flowed out and his teeth were bleeding. Is this enough? Su Mengqing laughed. Very good, it's enough this time, but next time it will be even worse. Let me tell you, not only will there be a next time, there will also be a next time. I want you to remember me forever. She had learned this from Su Xia. The so-called revenge. Don't think that killing you is the end of it. I want you to live, and the next time I come to find you, I want you to live forever in this shadow of fear, like a nightmare that you can't get rid of. You bitch. Song Chen didn't finish his words. Because he was used to living like a prince, the intense pain caused him to faint on the spot. Su Mengqing stared at Ling Xingwen and the others. Remember, I will leave your worthless lives today so that you will forever remember what happened today. This matter is not over yet. The Starbow group must pay an even higher price." After saying this, she waved her hand and hundreds of people fell to the ground, including the Dai family behind her. Their consciousnesses were all frozen. At this moment, only Dai, Aaron, and Su Qianqian were left on the huge stage. Su Mengqing smiled at Dai, and then her body began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. The beautiful female star was gone, replaced by the image of a man dressed in black. Ding Meng smiled and said, "I'm sorry, Miss Dai. I came back a little late and made you feel wronged." Dai's tears immediately poured out. "Ding Meng, I knew it was you." After saying this, she threw off her high heels, lifted her wedding dress, and ran barefoot into Ding Meng's arms. "Ooh. Okay, don't cry. It's all over now." Ding Meng comforted her. Aaron and Su Qianqian's eyes were also wet. "Ding Meng, we are so happy. You really didn't die. You really came back alive. Dai has been waiting for you for 7 years." Ding Meng smiled and said, "Good people don't live long, but scourges live for thousands of years. I came back to scourge this group of people." Aaron and Su Qianqian couldn't help but laugh through their tears. Dai also raised her head and kissed Ding Meng's lips tightly with her bright red lips, ignoring Ding Meng's reaction. The kiss lasted for half a minute, making Ding Meng feel a little suffocated. This stimulation came too suddenly, didn't it? However, Ding Meng also felt the meaning of this kiss. There was excitement, joy, blame, and grievance. After a long time, Dai let go of him, blushed, and put her arms around his neck. She said emotionally, "Ding Meng, only you are qualified to wear this wedding dress of mine. No one else is allowed to wear it." Ding Meng smiled and said, "It's okay, Miss Dai. Didn't I come back in one piece?" At this time, the temperature on the stage suddenly rose, and purple air rushed in from all directions. After a burst of purple smoke, Meng Yan, who was wearing a black cloak, appeared. She bowed her head respectfully and said, "Mr. Ting." Ding Meng nodded and said, "Is it done?" Meng Yan said, "Mrs. Yao has been found. She is too weak and hasn't eaten for days. I have already sent her to the nutrition cabin on the spaceship." Ding Meng looked at Dai helplessly and sighed. "Miss Dai, don't worry about your father and brother for the time being. This is not a place to stay for long. Let's go somewhere else for the time being." Dai took a deep breath and nodded firmly. "Ding Meng, I'll go with you." Chapter 614. On the coast of the western suburbs of the Flying Star City, a carrier starship with the logo of the Surprise Attack Corps had long been docked in the rocky forest on the beach. When the marshal saw Ding Meng and his group walking over, he took the initiative to welcome them. "Brother Ding, we have been waiting for you for a long time." Ding Meng nodded and turned to Dai, and the other two. "Miss Dai, don't go back to Blue Pole Star City for the time being. You have seen the situation now. I suggest you go to Yu Liang's place to hide for a while. The marshal will send you there safely. Auntie Yao is on this ship. You should stay with her for a while." Dai also nodded. She was actually smarter than many women. She did not ask Ding Meng why he did not leave with them. Ding Meng had directly set up 2 powerful opponents because of her. One was the Bai family, and the other was the Star Rainbow group. These 2 families would definitely not let it go. They would definitely come to cause trouble for Ding Meng. Therefore, Ding Meng had to stay and deal with the follow-up matters. At that moment, the marshal admired Ding Meng to death. He did not know what had just happened in the villa in the western suburbs, but he knew that today was the so-called engagement ceremony of Bai Qingyun and Dai. The villa in the western suburbs could be said to be filled with celebrities and experts, but Ding Meng had brought Dai there unscathed. This is King awesome. How did Brother Ding do it? The marshal's gossipy soul burned. He could not help but ask in a fawning manner, "Brother Ding, how should I explain to Yu Liang and the others that I went to planet KV-303? Ding Meng knew what he was thinking. He smiled and said, "Just say that if you can't reason with them, then use force to suppress them." "Awesome." The marshal jumped up and smiled mysteriously. "Brother Ding, can you reveal some details? Ding Ming smiled and said, All right, let's go quickly. When the people in the villa find out about you, you won't dare to move even if you have 10,000 guts. All right. The marshal turned to the connecting cabin resentfully. When he returned, he did not know how to brag to the four-eyed man and the Russian. As the transport ship slowly lifted off, Meng Yin said, Mr. Ting, where should we go next? Ding Ming smiled. Go back to where you came from? Meng Yin probed. How about we temporarily hide in the dragon-slaughtering army? Captain Zheng has always admired you. Ding Ming said, You can't avoid trouble. Do you think that after what happened today, the Star Rainbow Group and the Bai family won't be able to find me? Meng Yin hesitated and asked, Then, should we return to Blue Pole Star City? Ding Ming nodded affirmatively. Yes, my purpose is to go to Blue Pole Star City. Meng Yan's eyes lit up. That's great. We can visit the Blue Moon branch of the Sheng Hao Group. Ding Ming was curious. Why are you going to Sheng Hao Group? Meng Yan's expression was a little helpless. The invitation for you to go to Eastar Mountain was given to me by the boss of the Blue Moon branch of the Sheng Hao Group. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sold it in my name at all. Is that so? Ding Ming said thoughtfully. So, you owe him a big favor? Meng Yan's expression was a little unnatural. It's not like I owe him a favor. I have some friendship with him. I was thinking that if you're going the same way, why don't you go there as a guest? I believe that after what happened today, you'll be the focus of the Sheng Hao Group. Ding Ming thought for a moment. It was not a bad thing to get in touch with the Sheng Hao Group now. Well, let's go to the Sheng Hao Group. At the same time, in Villa Number 6 in the western suburbs, hundreds of people were still unconscious, but one person in the swimming pool was the first to wake up. This person was lucky to have survived Ding Ming's attack. This person was Teng Ma. Teng Ma, who was wet all over, staggered onto the stage. Only then did he realize that everyone had collapsed. He ignored his serious injuries and quickly turned on his wristband and sent everything recorded here to the International Space Network in the form of a quantum mail. He believed that in 1 or 2 hours at most, the headquarters of the Xinhong Group would know what had happened here. In fact, the mail did not record the whole process of the incident. Instead, it mainly recorded Su Mengxing's every move. If Teng Ma had not been unconscious underwater, his wristband would have been destroyed by Ding Ming. 3 hours later, on the other side of the International Space Network, in a modern office decorated with a very high-tech atmosphere, a stunning beauty was wearing a pair of delicate low-light glasses and carefully observing something. These were not the ordinary low-light glasses used for identification, but an extremely advanced pair of curved image-forming glasses. This was the technology that the Xinhong Group was proud of. One had to know that the Xinhong Group's business was huge, and every senior executive had to deal with countless things every day. Therefore, this pair of glasses came in handy. After browsing through the mail, the transit string did not make a judgment or issue orders as quickly and decisively as before. Instead, he took off his glasses and gently rubbed his temples. His secretary, Jin Xiaoyan, was familiar with his boss's habit. This was definitely a big problem that was difficult to solve. Xiaoyan, you should also take a look at the message sent by Elder Teng. I have already sent it to your workspace, the transit string suddenly said. Jin Xiaoyan immediately put on her glasses. Under normal circumstances, the transit string would not let her participate in the decision-making. She was only responsible for the execution. After a long time, Jin Xiaoyan also took off her glasses. She did not reveal any expression of surprise. As a secretary who had followed the transit string for many years, she was equally knowledgeable. Xiaoyan, what do you think? The transit string asked. Jin Xiaoyan immediately replied, Miss Ling, this person is definitely not Su Mengxing. I know Su Mengxing very well. She is a non-combat origin ability user, and strictly speaking, she is someone who leans towards your side. The transit string nodded, clearly agreeing with her view. The question is, how did she suddenly become so powerful? Jin Xiaoyan immediately said, Biochemical origin ability users have many secret techniques and techniques that can change their physical characteristics. She should be someone else in disguise. We can check Miss Sue's whereabouts. As she spoke, she turned on her wristwatch. The screen that rose up was extremely large, taking up almost a third of the space in the office. This three-dimensional screen was more like a workbench. As her fingers moved, all kinds of images and data were quickly refreshed. The wristwatches of the Star Rainbow Group's employees were connected to the headquarters' mainframe system and the space station's reconnaissance system. They could locate anyone at any time. However, the results were beyond the transit string's expectations. Jean Xiaoyan said, Miss Ling, Miss Su arrived at the East Star Mountain Resort in Blue Pole City on the 17th. On the 22nd, she left the Blue Moon space station with the Bai family's carrier ship. From then on, her wristwatch seemed to have been turned off, and she lost contact with the headquarters. It seems that the person who impersonated her came prepared. The transit string sighed. Not only did they do their homework in advance, but they also hid her. Jean Xiaoyan pondered and said, But who is this impersonator? The transit string laughed disdainfully. There are only a few reasons for this impersonation. First, it can't be exposed. Second, this person doesn't want to expose their identity. Third, it's someone that everyone is familiar with. Jean Xiaoyan said, Miss Su has a wide circle of friends. She knows a lot of people. Could it be someone on Miss Ling's side? The transit string laughed. Xiaoyan, you'll never be able to guess the result if you keep guessing like this. As she spoke, she turned on her personal wristwatch, but what came out was not the work interface, but the communication channel. A remote projection immediately appeared in the center of the office, and a mirror image of a handsome middle-aged man was generated. This man was still wearing the Federation's officer uniform, and the symbol on his chest showed his noble identity, Major General. The officer was very surprised by this communication connection, and the smile on his face could not be concealed. Xingxian, am I dreaming? You actually took the initiative to contact me? The transit string's eyelids drooped. Haodong, how many times have I told you? Please don't call me that. Haodong scratched his head in embarrassment. Haha, I'm sorry, I was too excited. Well, Miss Ling, why are you so free today? Aren't you busy? Only then did the transit string restore her image of a high and mighty goddess. Why? Do I have to contact you when I'm free? Haodong hurriedly said, Hey, what are you talking about? You can take time out of your busy schedule to contact me every day, which proves that I'm not that bad, right? Jean Xiaoyan, who was at the side, secretly laughed. The boss had so many spare tires. Do you really think she has you in her heart? However, these words could only be said in her heart, but Jean Xiaoyan was also very impressed because the transit string had this kind of ability and charm. All the men who admired her basically fell under her pomegranate skirt. It was the kind of situation where you can't have me, but you can't do anything to me. Haodong, I have something I want to ask you for help with. The transit string said. Haodong sighed. See, I knew you wouldn't come to me for no reason. You only contact me when you need something. I thought you changed your mind. It seemed that he was not a fool. He knew the transit string style, so a spare tire should have the awareness of being a spare tire. You could be a spare tire because you still have value. If you don't even have value, then you'll really be a man in the eyes of men and a poor man in the eyes of women. When that time comes, you won't even be qualified to be a bootlicker. Okay, what's the matter? If it's within my ability and allowed in principle, then there's no problem, Haodong replied. The transit string then said seriously, Is there such a person who is an employee or guest of Starbao Group and passed the inspection of the Blue Moon space station between the 1st and 17th of this month, authorized and allowed to enter Blue Pole Star City and enter the giant ring building of the Blue Moon part of the Starbao Group without any hindrance? If Ding Meng were present at this moment, he would have to admire the transit string for being able to think of this. Yes, no matter who was impersonating Su Mengqing, there were many key points that this impersonator could not bypass. First of all, this person was definitely a citizen of the Federation. Otherwise, they would not be able to pass through the space station. Second of all, this person must have known Su Mengqing's travel time and route in advance and entered Blue Pole Star City. Third of all, since they knew Su Mengqing's whereabouts, they must have gotten the information from within Starbao Group. The person who could enter the giant ring building was most likely a member of Starbao Group. Following this clue, they would immediately be able to find out who was impersonating Su Mengqing. Even if they could not find out who it was, they would still have relevant clues about the impersonator. However, to Haodong, this deliberately mystifying speech was not the case. My third Miss Ling, are you trying to use the military's authority to check the identity of a citizen entering or leaving the country? Why don't you just say it directly? You're making it sound like a riddle. The transit string could not help but smile. Haodong, I'm doing this for your sake. You only need to check the entry and exit records. You don't need to check the exit records. Look, I've directly reduced your workload by half. Haodong sighed. Okay, but it might take some time. The transit string smiled. Are you free tonight? How about we have a simple meal together? Haodong's spirit was immediately lifted. Don't worry, I'm definitely free. Give me 3 hours, and I promise to give you a satisfactory answer. Chapter 6:15. After Haodong's mirror image disappeared, another remote real-time projection came in. This time, the mirror image was a hale and hearty old man. He was short, but his face was dignified. His eyes shone with a threatening light, and his whole body was filled with the aura of a superior. He was obviously used to giving orders. Seeing the old man, even the transit string, who had always been high and mighty, stood up. Dad, why are you here? This was the leader of the Starbao Corporation, Ling Zhixing. He was also Ling Xingxian's father. His expression was obviously not very good, but his tone was still very gentle. Xingxian, what's going on in Flying Star City? Of his 3 beloved daughters, his youngest daughter was the most capable one. When something happened in the Flying Star City, he knew that the transit string would be the first one to find out the truth. The transit string knew her father's style, too. She could not say that it was still under investigation. Instead, she went straight to the point. Someone pretended to be Su Mengqing and came here for Fang Zhenghao. Ling Zhixing's face was cold and emotionless. Mr. Baibo just talked to me. He asked me to give him an explanation. Whether or not Su Mengqing was pretended, she is an artist to the Star Rainbow Group after all. The transit string was somewhat helpless. In the ceremony, my second sister announced that Su Mengqing no longer belonged to the Star Rainbow Group. Nonsense. Ling Zhixing glared at her. How did you do it? You are still as reckless as ever. The transit string said carefully, Dad, forgive me for saying too much, but we didn't do the Fang Zhenghao thing justice. Ling Zhixing glanced at her, somewhat dissatisfied. Do I need you to teach me how to do things? I dare not. The transit string lowered her head respectfully. Ling Zhixing muttered to himself, I have a few tasks for you to complete right now. First, find out the culprit who killed many of my Starry Rainbow battle monarchs and kidnapped the Dai Clan's 5th young Mississippi. Second, make up for the losses caused by this incident to my Starry Rainbow group. Third, pacify the Bai Clan. Ling Xingxian frowned. Father, I heard that the 5th daughter of the Dai family was forced to attend Mr. by Qing Yun's engagement ceremony. If I were to attend it personally, I wouldn't be able to stand on moral grounds. As a woman, she was definitely disgusted by the Bai family's forced marriage, but she couldn't say it in front of Ling Zhixing. Ling Zhixing said, Xingxian, I'm not asking you to go because I agree with the Bai family's actions. I'm just letting them know that we, Xinghong, are not going to sit idly by. Let me ask you, what if this incident was orchestrated by Shanghao Group? The transit string was stunned for a moment, but then she said decisively, That's impossible. That impostor killed more than a dozen warlords with a single sword strike. How could the Shanghao Group use such a powerful expert to deal with such a trivial matter? A look of admiration appeared in Ling Zhixing's eyes. This little girl's judgment was completely in line with his expectations, but his tone was still very serious. That's the problem. This person is neither a member of Xinghong nor a member of Shanghao Group, so it's even more impossible for him to be a member of Tianhong's Hanyue Xingxing. The transit string immediately understood. This was a legendary expert in the wilderness. Once he was recruited, the loss of more than a dozen cultivators would be nothing. For a moment, She admired Ling Zixing. Her father always had a long-term vision. I know what to do. The transit string lowered her head and expressed. Ling Zixing said, "Thank you for your hard work this time. The security will send someone with a higher level to you. In addition, Xingqi is also on her way back. She will meet you when the time comes." Really? The transit string looked like a child at this moment and almost jumped up. That's great. Ling Zixing didn't say anything else, and the mirror image slowly disappeared. The transit string then instructed Jin Xiaoyan to start preparing for the trip. This time, she had to go to Blue Pole Star City in person. After studying the email for a while, a new communication link was connected to the center of the office again. The transit string couldn't help but be a little surprised. "Haodong, I didn't expect you to be so efficient. You have news in such a short time?" Haodong's expression looked a little meaningful. "Xingqi, you have to be mentally prepared. I'm afraid the person I found will bring you an unexpected surprise." Oh, the transit string was also a little curious. She smiled and said, "He can surprise me? I'm really looking forward to it." Haodong didn't waste any time and immediately switched to a hologram. It showed the situation at the Blue Moon Space Station's #1 exit. All of them were passengers coming down from the International Space Station's public spacecraft. Men and women, young and old, groups after groups, wave after wave. Suddenly, the image was enlarged, and the image of a short man in the crowd was magnified. This person was dressed strangely. He was wearing a yellow tattered suit, and his pants were tattered and had several holes in them. However, this person's face was firm and calm, and he didn't care about his clothes at all. It looked like he was patrolling his own territory. Jin Xiaoyan almost exclaimed, "This person? I remember now. Oh my God, I even gave him equipment." The transit string also showed a surprised expression. "It is indeed him. I didn't expect him to still be alive. What a miracle." The person on the screen was none other than Ding Ming, who had disappeared for 7 years. The transit string showed a trace of a bitter smile. At this time, there is almost no doubt that the initiator of this incident was Ding Ming, because all the clues and signs pointed to Ding Ming. Those who dared to ask for an explanation for Fong Zhenghao and had the ability to do so were definitely Fong Zhenghao's friends when he was alive, and they had extraordinary strength. Ding Ming happened to be one of them. When the refugee camp on planet KV-303 was massacred, Ding Ming went to Cypress Grove alone and turned the extreme pirate force upside down. This time, Fong Zhenghao, as the leader of Green Arrow, died for no reason. How could Ding Ming stay out of it? It would be strange if he didn't come knocking on their door. As Dai Yi's ex-boyfriend, how could Ding Ming allow the Bai family to taint Dai Yi? Only Ding Ming dared to ruin the engagement ceremony, and this was absolutely justified. The most important point was that Ding Ming used the applied psychokinesis when he taught Lung Wu a lesson, which also matched Ding Ming's characteristics. With all these characteristics and clues combined, Su Mingqing's impersonator must be Ding Ming. There was no one else. Haodong suddenly smiled. "How is it, Xingxing? Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" The transit string had a headache at this moment. Ding Ming used to be a potential stock that she thought highly of, and she even offered him an olive branch to recruit him. However, Du Peixing insisted on Ding Ming carrying out a special military mission. As a result, something big happened to the expedition, and Ding Ming disappeared in the space-time crack. Because of this, the transit string was furious, and she vented all her anger on the Du family. Half a year later, Du Peixing was transferred out of the Federation's Blue Moon Special Fleet and was no longer the commander. It was also because of the transit string's tactics that the Xinghong group became enemies with the Du family and the Lang family. However, at that time, the transit string was arrogant and thought that it was not a big deal to offend the Du family and the Lang family. No matter how famous the Du family and the Lang family were, they could not be compared to the Ling family. In fact, her mentality was similar to that of Ling Xingwen today. Wasn't it just the death of a mercenary group leader? What was there to be surprised about? However, 7 years later, Ding Ming actually came back alive, and in such a powerful way. Judging from the fight in the Flying Star City, Ding Meng was at least an advanced warlord, and his level could only be higher. 7 years ago, Ding Meng was only a warlord. In such a short time, he had broken through to the warlord level. How incredible was this? The transit string was not interested in guessing where Ding Meng had been for the past 7 years. What he'd been through. The only thing she felt now was extreme hatred for Song Chun. Look at what you have done. At the same time, she was also very angry at her second sister, Ling Xingwen, for covering up for Fong Zhenghao and Su Mengqing. If he did not treat Fong Zhenghao and Su Mengqing like this, Ding Meng would be working for the Xinghong group now. How could those old guys from the Shanghao group be so arrogant? For a moment, the transit string's thoughts were in a mess. How should she deal with the current situation? The transit string seemed to have thought of something and suddenly said, Xiaoyan, immediately prepare a starship to leave the capital. We will go to the Blue Moon tonight. Before Jin Xiaoyan could answer, Haodong was not very happy. Xing Xian, that's not very good of you, is it? The transit string smiled apologetically. Haodong, I'm sorry. The situation is a bit urgent. I don't want to hide it from you. If this Ding Meng is one step ahead of Shanghao Group, it will be a big problem. After I deal with this matter, I will ask you out alone. Haodong said seriously. Xing Xian, I understand. In fact, this Ding Meng is very famous in the military. I'm also very curious about this person. If it's convenient for you, I can accompany you to the Azure department. Haodong, you'd better do what you need to do. Wait for me to come back. The transit string also knew that once the news of Ding Meng's return was known by the Federation's military, those generals would definitely try to recruit Ding Meng. You want to snatch the person that I, Xinghong Group, made an appointment with many years ago? Dream on. This was the transit string style. As long as she had her eyes on something, whether it was a person or an object, she was determined to get it. Haodong still wanted to say a few more words, but the transit string suddenly turned off the communication channel. Miss Ling, if we leave tonight, what else do we need to prepare? Jin Xiaoyan took the initiative to ask. The transit string thought for a moment and said, Go and inform Mr. Cartel from the R&D department and ask him to come with me to Blue Moon this time. Do we need to inform anyone else? Jin Xiaoyan was obviously very smart. She knew that the transit string wanted to play the emotional card. After all, Ding Meng and Cartel used to have a good relationship in the Blue Moon branch. Ling Xingwen had now made Ding Meng stand on the opposite side of the Xinghong group. The most important thing now was to quickly repair the relationship between the Xinghong group and Ding Meng. Inform the Blue Moon branch to collect all the information about Ding Meng's activities in Blue Pole Star City. Ask the vice president, namely you, to arrange for the relevant people. The sooner the better. Deal with it urgently. The transit string was very decisive. What about the second miss? Jin Xiaoyan asked indifferently. The transit string's face darkened. Let her reflect on herself in the Flying Star City for a few days. Don't send a starship to pick her up. Okay. Jin Xiaoyan sighed helplessly. At this juncture, even if the transit string did not take care of Ling Xingwen, with Ling Xingwen's personality and connections in the Jianghu, it would be strange if she did not seek revenge. Chapter 616. In the southwestern outskirts of Blue Pole Star City, far away from the bustling business district, a super skyscraper with more than 1,000 floors rose from the ground on a flat green grassland. It covered an area of more than 1 million square meters, and its base was extremely huge. The overall structure was not the giant ring style of the Starbao Group, but the purest square main structure. Although the style was more retro, it was majestic and integrated. It had the aura of a king standing at the peak. This was the Star Peak building of the Blue Moon branch of the Shanghao Group. Although the Star Rainbow Group had occupied a dominant position in the Blue Pole Star City in recent years, the prestige of the Shanghao Group was not to be underestimated by anyone. At this moment, a small spaceship slowly landed on the huge tarmac. A man and a woman walked down from the connecting cabin. They both looked very young. The tarmac of the Shanghao Group was circular and divided into 5 floors. After passing through the tarmac, they did not enter the building. Instead, they arrived at the square of the building. The square was built in a refreshing way because it had abandoned the modern office style of technology. Instead, it used a campus-style of flowers and shade. Walking in was like returning to the time when everyone was a student. It was refreshing. The first floor of the building was a multi-purpose hall. It was similar to the security check of the space station's port. All of them were guarded by intelligent robots. Ding Meng and Meng Yin did not have Sheng Hao's pass, so they could only wait in the lounge. The multi-purpose hall was actually very busy. Other than the intelligent robots, there were many people coming and going in and out of the building. All of them were wearing professional suits, and many of them were wearing very expensive clothes. This alone showed why the Sheng Hao group was above the Starbao group. It was because of the large volume of business transactions. Of course, Ding Meng and Meng Yan's attire was relatively different. They were both wearing black clothes similar to ancient martial arts. Meng Yan even wore a cloak, which was incompatible with the atmosphere of this place. Therefore, the people passing by could not help but look at them. After waiting for about 10 minutes, the CEO's special escalator on the east side opened. A middle-aged woman in a professional suit walked out and said respectfully, "Miss Meng, sorry to keep you waiting. The CEO asked me to invite you up." She then noticed Ding Meng. "This is Mr. Ting, the person who made the appointment, right?" "Hello, I'm the CEO's administrative secretary, Yuling Wei. You can call me Secretary Yu." Yuling Wei had a decent appearance, elegant temperament, and always had a gentle smile on her face. She gave people the feeling that she was friendly and easy to get along with, giving people a good impression of her. "Okay, then I'll have to trouble you." Ding Meng nodded and followed Yu Ling Wei into the ladder. Perhaps he didn't think much of it, but when he entered the escalator, many people in the hall were shocked. That was the escalator used by Sheng Hao CEO and Big Secretary. You had personally come pick him up. Who were those two men in black? Why was it so? In fact, they were not the only ones who were curious. Yu Ling Wei, who was on the ladder, was also curious. She knew Meng Yan, and she had come to Sheng Hao more than once. However, who was this Ding Meng? She sensed for a bit and found that Ding Meng didn't have the slightest bit of origin energy aura. This was really unbelievable. Since he wasn't an origin ability expert, could he be a young master from some family? However, there was no one with the surname Ding among the famous people in Blue Pole Star City. She was sensing Ding Meng. How could Ding Meng not be aware of this? Ding Meng sighed slightly. Yu Ling Wei wasn't as simple as she looked. This administrative secretary was actually an intermediate warlord. She cultivated the standard thermal energy system, and the source energy in her body was extremely pure. The purity of this source energy wasn't inferior to the secondary source refined by the diamond star fusing art. At least, among the people that Ding Meng had met, Yu Ling Wei was a very rare existence. In other words, if Yu Ling Wei didn't cultivate a secret manual, then her foundation was quite solid. It could be said that she rarely met a match among origin ability experts of the same level. Sheng Hao Corporation was really rich. Even the secretary had such a cultivation base. He really didn't know what realm the CEO was at. Ding Meng's praise actually had its reasons. This time, in Meteor City, although those old men beside Ling Xingwen were all battle monarchs, that was only because their origin ability index had reached the level of a battle monarch. Their foundation and background might not be as deep as this secretary's. If they really fought in a real battle, those old men might not be as strong as Yu Ling Wei. Looking at Yu Ling Wei, he estimated that she was around 90 years old. According to the Federation standards, there was still a lot of room for improvement. While he was thinking, the escalator stopped at the highest level, the 1,288th floor. Yu Ling Wei led the two of them through the luxurious hall on the top floor, and then turned into an even more luxurious office. This office occupied an area of at least 300 square meters. If he hadn't been here in person, Ding Meng would have thought that Sheng Hao Corporation had taken control of Xinguang Technology. This office had a minimalist sci-fi style. All the furnishings and decorations were in a light blue state of shimmer. It seemed to be in the form of light, but it also seemed to be in the form of flowing liquid. It was brilliant and colorful, and it was incomparably wonderful. Yulingwei said courteously, "Miss Meng, Mr. Ting, please take a rest. The CEO still has a meeting to attend. He'll be here soon." After she finished speaking, she left. Ding Meng carefully scanned these shimmers. A moment later, he suddenly realized that this was the transmogrification effect of the pi crystal glaze. However, this was stronger than the pi crystal glaze because it extracted the glaze shadow effect from the pi crystal glaze and formed a new technology that could be directly applied in reality. From this point of view, Shang Hao's technology could be considered quite impressive. His telekinesis vision spread out, and the real appearance of the office was revealed. A large desk, a large office chair, a sofa, a coffee table, a business conference table, a fountain, a rockery, and even a few large green potted plants in the corner. It seems that the CEO of Shang Hao Corporation has a very unique taste. Ding Meng couldn't help but sigh. Meng Yin sat on the sofa and didn't say anything. She just smiled slightly. Ding Meng noticed that there was a coat rack and a pink cabinet next to the CEO's desk. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. "Is this CEO a woman?" Meng Yin said in surprise. "Mr. Ting, how can you tell?" Ding Meng smiled. "This office is no different from other offices. It's just that it's filled with a fragrance. This smell is very familiar. I seem to have smelled it somewhere before. I can't remember it at the moment, but I'm sure that this is a woman's perfume." Meng Yin also smiled. "It seems that nothing can be hidden from you." Unfortunately, Ding Meng didn't answer this time. The smile on his face suddenly disappeared, because after meeting Prince Ling Jian on the Azure Tree planet, in the office of the CEO of Shang Hao Corporation, there was a blind spot in his telekinesis vision again. The dark blind spot came from outside the door. Ding Meng suddenly turned around and saw the door automatically open. A beautiful figure walked in from the outside. As soon as he saw this person, Ding Meng was immediately stunned. The person who walked in was naturally a woman. She was calm and composed. "Look at you. Are you surprised to see me?" Ding Meng couldn't answer. A trace of embarrassment flashed across his face. "Are you the CEO of the Blue Moon branch of Shang Hao Corporation? Then who do you think is it?" The woman walked slowly to the sofa. Meng Yin had already taken the initiative to stand up. Ding Meng smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect it to be you." He really didn't expect it, because this person had left a deep impression on him. She was the fierce person who even he was afraid of, Lan Bing. Lan Bing was very different from before. In Ding Meng's memory, Lan Bing was also high and mighty. Her aloofness was different from that of the transit string and the others. Lan Bing always wore a classic cheongsam that gave people a kind of stunning beauty, and her expression was always cold and indifferent. She always kept people thousands of miles away from her. She was as beautiful as peaches and plums and as cold as frost, like a mannequin in a picture. She was the kind of woman who only appeared in your imagination. But now, instead of the cheongsam, she was wearing the most orthodox professional suit. It was a light gray woman's suit and trousers. The top was a light blue shirt with a tightly buttoned collar and a black and white pattern tie. The cuffs were rolled up high, revealing half of her white arm. The exquisite wristwatch on her wrist was like a woman's watch, showing the outstanding technology of Shang Hao Corporation. This attire didn't reveal anything at all, but gave people the feeling that this uniform was wrapped around an unreasonably good figure. Lan Bing's long hair had been cut off to her shoulders, and she had changed it to a short brown hair with a side parting of 37.7. The side parting long bangs fell directly on the left side of her face and reached her chin. She was simply energetic and full of personality. In the past, her beautiful face was always barefaced, and people were amazed by her beauty. But today, Lan Bing wore light makeup. Her eyebrows were obviously touched up, and her eyeshadow was soft and charming. The lip gloss made her lips look more vibrant, and her cheeks were white with a faint blush. How was this Lan Bing? She was completely a white-collar beauty with a heavenly fragrance. But this was indeed Lan Bing. She had completely transformed. She was confident, generous, mature, fashionable, and had an irresistible workplace style. Ding Meng suddenly sighed. Sister Yin, let's go. This was the first time that Yin did not follow Ding Meng's orders. Her expression was a little awkward. Mr. Ting, you know that Miss Bing and I are old friends, and we've been like sisters over the years, so what? Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. Meng Yin coughed dryly. I actually know everything about the two of you. Cough, cough. She was coughing dryly, and Ding Meng was coughing violently. He could not help but think of the exploration ship that the Haitian group had parked deep underground on Bramble Planet. In the research room on the ship, there was that absurd, charming, and crazy night. But at this time, he forbade himself from thinking about this, so he could only look at Lan Bing. I still remember what you said back then. Lan Bing elegantly sat down on the sofa and gently poured herself a cup of calming tea. You have a good memory. Ding Meng said, either you die or I die. That's what you said, right? Who's going to die now? Meng Yin immediately became nervous. The two people in front of her were decisive people who would not go back on their words. They would definitely do what they said. Unexpectedly, Lan Bing picked up her cup and took a sip of her drink as if nothing had happened. She completely ignored Ding Meng's existence and turned to Meng Yin. Sister Yin, it's rare for us to be so relaxed today. Why don't we go shopping at the Southern District's 100 Delights in the afternoon? Recently, the Ninth store has a lot of new limited designs. When she heard that it was clothes, Meng Yin had no resistance at all. She agreed without hesitation. Okay, I haven't gone shopping with you in a long time. It's been half a year since the last time we went. This was just like how Ding Meng could not resist delicious food. He was still in a daze when Lan Bing said to Meng Yin, it'll be lunchtime soon. Why don't we go to the Southern District and try the 100 Brocade Pavilion? It's quite good. Meng Yin smiled. Okay, no problem. Ding Meng was immediately amused. He was completely ignored. He had come to the Sheng Hao group to visit and thank them, but they wanted to eat and go shopping. What was going on? Chapter 617. Looking at Ding Meng's confused face, Lan Bing could not help but smile. She pointed to the sofa opposite her and said, since you're here, you're a guest. Sit down. Why are you still standing? So, Ding Meng had to sit down. Facing Lan Bing alone gave him a lot of pressure. It was not that Lan Bing's aura was oppressive, but it was mainly because of the subtle psychology. Once a man and a woman broke through a certain layer of relationship, they would have a strange feeling when they faced each other again. It was not so much embarrassment as a guilty conscience. Compared to Ding Meng's nervousness, Lan Bing was very generous. What would you like to drink? I have it here. Please help yourself. Ding Meng said, forget it. Water is fine. Then I'll have to trouble Sister Yin to pour me a glass of water. Lan Bing glanced at Meng Yin. Meng Yin understood and immediately turned and walked out of the office. This time, Ding Meng felt even more guilty. He, who had always been strong, did not dare to look up at the other party. Lan Bing looked at him with interest. I haven't seen you for many years. I didn't expect you to become so timid. You even dare to kill more than a dozen Xinhong group battle mages with one sword, but you don't dare to look at the president of Sheng Hao Group. Ding Meng smiled helplessly. I didn't expect you to join Sheng Hao Group and become the president of Blue Moon Branch. Lan Bing said, do you think it's easy to get my position? Ding Meng hesitated. Before, Lan Bing immediately waved her hand. I've forgotten everything. You don't have to take it to heart. I only know that I work for Sheng Hao Group and deal with all kinds of difficult and complicated diseases in Blue Moon Branch. Lan Bing was indeed very different from before. At least in terms of mental state, there was a positive change, so Ding Meng no longer hesitated. Thank you for this matter. I also want to thank you on behalf of the people of Planet KV-303. Lan Bing waved her hand and said, don't be in a hurry to thank me. You should worry about yourself first. Ding Meng said, oh. Lan Bing said meaningfully, Ling Xingxian of the Star Rainbow headquarters just spoke to me. She wants to come to Blue Pole Star City in person. In my opinion, she is here for you. Your identity as Su Mengqing has been exposed. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. I also know that I can't hide it for long, especially the transit string. He had never underestimated the power of the senior figures of the major corporations. It wouldn't take too long for them to find out his identity. Lan Bing stared at him. You've changed a lot compared to 7 years ago. Ding Ming said, maybe not as much as you. Lan Bing said, tell me, what changes can I make? Ding Ming said seriously, I didn't expect you to reach the level of an intermediate warlord in such a short period of time. At the same time, you also have ice, biochemical, and light speed abilities. You've also developed applied psychokinesis. This is rocket speed. Lan Bing said, this is all thanks to the cultivation resources of the Sheng Hao Group. How did you come to the Sheng Hao Group? Ding Ming was really curious about this question. Lan Bing smiled softly. Her smile was a little sad. Do you know that you are very lucky? Ding Ming asked, why do you say that? Lan Bing said, back then, you killed Chu Mingliang on the expedition and then left in outer space, but you left a big mess behind. Have you ever thought that the people related to you haven't been living very well these years? There were some things that Meng Yin had told him before. Du Peixing had been transferred away, the refugee camp could not be properly settled, Fang Zhenghao had been killed, and even Dai Yi had been plotted against. Anyone related to him did not seem to be very lucky. Ding Ming nodded. Indeed, Lan Bing sighed. The Haitian group has plummeted, and I can't go back. You should know that as long as someone wants to survive without anyone to rely on, they will attract all kinds of covetous eyes. In the end, it may lead to disastrous consequences. Ding Ming agreed with this statement. In essence, Lan Bing and Meng Yin were the same kind of people. Back then, with his departure and the collapse of the Haitian group, these two women lost their backing. As a result, Meng Yin was reduced to becoming a bounty hunter. Of course, Lan Bing was different. She was also strong and had the most primitive capital of a woman. Moreover, her capital was stronger than anyone else's. Could it be that Lan Bing relied on a powerful figure in the Sheng Hao group? Lan Bing seemed to know what he was thinking and took the initiative to explain. You guessed right. I was naturally chosen by the big boss of the Sheng Hao group. Otherwise, how could I be promoted so quickly? I could directly take charge of the Blue Moon branch. As soon as he heard this, Ding Ming felt a little uncomfortable. This was also a common problem for men. If they couldn't get what they wanted, they were afraid that others would take advantage of them. Seeing that his face was as dark as water, Lan Bing suddenly laughed again. She laughed very proudly. Others choose me because I have the ability. Of course, it's one thing for them to choose me, and it's another thing whether I agree or not. Ding Ming could only sigh in admiration. He had forgotten again that Lan Bing was good at keeping people in suspense. Back then, this woman had made Chu Yifeng head over heels in love with her. She had made Jiehua hover between life and death. Even an old man like Chu Mingliang had fallen for her tricks and wanted to be with her. He had to admit that this was her ability. It was like those high and mighty goddesses were born with this talent. However, Misty didn't seem to be like this. She was much better. Ding Ming sighed helplessly. Well, no matter what, I still have to thank you. After you became the boss of Sheng Hao Group, Sister Yin also rose with the tide and became the deputy commander of the Dragon Slaying Corps. Lan Bing said leisurely, she and I are like sisters. This is what I should do. You, on the other hand, have caused such a big commotion when you came back. Ding Ming said indifferently, it's not that big of a commotion. Lan Bing stared at him. You turned someone's engagement ceremony upside down. You killed people and broke their arms and legs. You even kidnapped someone's fiancée. Very impressive. Ding Ming really wanted to refute her by saying, she's really not by Qingyun's fiancé, okay? However, he felt guilty under Lan Bing's stare. He could only bite the bullet and say, I can't ignore Commander Fang's matter. Lan Bing clapped her hands and smiled. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. I just want to remind you that you're going to be in trouble soon. Moreover, it's not a small matter. You should be aware of it. Ding Ming nodded. He naturally knew that he had humiliated the Xinghong, Bai, and Dai families. In particular, the Xinghong group had lost more than 10 battle monarchs. It was hard to say what the transit string's attitude would be, but with Ling Xingwen's personality, he would definitely seek revenge. The key was that he hadn't experienced the methods of these large groups and forces. Lan Bing said seriously, "Although your strength is not what it used to be, I still have to remind you that once you return to the Federation, simple and violent actions like this will cause a lot of trouble in the future." Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "Judging by your tone, do I have to learn from you and find someone to rely on?" Lan Bing shook her head. "It's not that exaggerated. However, have you thought about it? You have nowhere to go now." Ding Ming laughed in spite of himself and said, "Oh, let's hear it." Lan Bing said, "I only have one thing to say. You've offended these big families this time. Which group or force would dare to take you in now?" Ding Ming suddenly laughed. "Judging from what you said, it seems that only the Sheng Hao group can do it." Lan Bing said seriously, "That's right. Only the Sheng Hao group can protect you now." Ding Ming said, "There's one thing you might not know. I seem to have offended the Sheng Hao group before." Lan Bing said, "Is it that time on Cyprus Ancient Planet many years ago? I died, so what? That kind of person is not worthy of the Sheng Hao group's attention." Ding Ming asked curiously, "You actually know about this?" Lan Bing's face was slightly red. This was the history of the group that she had accessed with her high-level authority after becoming the CEO. The first person she checked was Ding Ming. She didn't expect that Ding Ming had also dealt with the Sheng Hao group before. Now that Ding Ming asked her such a question, she felt a little unnatural. Fortunately, Ding Ming didn't notice it. "I'm the CEO of the Blue Moon branch. As long as it's related to the Azure faction, there are very few things that I don't know," Lan Bing replied. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "All right, do you have any good suggestions?" Lan Bing's expression softened. "There's a position in the Blue Moon branch of the Sheng Hao group that suits you. I wonder if you're interested?" Ding Ming couldn't help but smile bitterly. "You want me to work in the Sheng Hao group?" Lan Bing said, "Something like that." Ding Ming's smile became even more bitter. "I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. I've looked for a job before. I was a sparring partner in a martial arts school. After working for 2 days, I was fired. Other than that, I haven't had a job." A sly smile flashed across Lan Bing's eyes. "But this job doesn't require any work experience for you. Moreover, it's easy for you to get used to it. Or you can put it this way. There's a lot of people who applied for this job, but I haven't found the right one. You're the best candidate. One thing I can promise you is that you won't be fired after working for a day or two." "Oh," Ding Ming was really curious. "There's such a good thing? What kind of job is it?" Lan Bing stared at him and said word by word, "The CEO's secretary." Ding Ming smiled again. "Are you sure you're not joking with me? Isn't Sister Yu outside your secretary?" Lan Bing corrected him. "That's the administrative secretary, not the CEO's secretary." Ding Ming asked curiously, "Is there a difference between the two?" "Yes," Lan Bing answered decisively. "Not only is there a difference, but there's a big difference." Ding Ming was also very decisive. "I can't do this job," Lan Bing said. "You haven't done it yet. How do you know you can't do it?" Ding Ming spread his hands and said, "Business meetings, administrative materials, business negotiations, and so on. I'm sorry, I don't know how to do it." "I know," Lan Bing nodded. "You really don't know how to do these things. What I'm asking you to do is definitely not these. I want to be the CEO's secretary, mainly to be responsible for my personal safety." Ding Ming stared at her. "Are you sure you're not joking with me?" Lan Bing said seriously. "Do I look like I'm joking with you?" Ding Ming sighed. "There are so many experts in Sheng Hao Group. Besides, you're not bad either. I don't think your safety will be threatened." Lan Bing sighed. "That's because you don't understand. The person sitting in my position is not safe, whether it's me or not. Moreover, I don't know how many other people are eyeing this position." "All right." Ding Ming admitted that her words made sense. Lan Bing continued, "It's true that there are so many experts in Sheng Hao Group. However, these experts are not working for me. I know you must be curious. That big secretary you outside is a warlord. She's quite strong. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. On the surface, she's my administrative secretary who handles all kinds of official business for me. In fact, she's arranged here to spy on me. Oh, Ding Meng was stunned again. Chapter 618. Lan Bing explained, Secretary, you was sent here by the headquarters in the capital. She has the authority to report directly to the headquarters about the Blue Moon branch. Under special circumstances, she can even bypass me and give orders directly. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped again. It seems like there's no point in you being the boss. Lan Bing said, but if you become Sheng Hao's CEO, Lan Yu's secretary, at least you'll have another layer of identity. Just like how you used to be a third-level VIP of the Starbao Group. This identity can help you avoid a lot of trouble. Ding Meng thought for a while. That sounds reasonable, Lan Bing said. At least when facing the upcoming transit string, with this identity, you won't be in a passive position when negotiating certain important matters. At this point, she couldn't help but let out a long sigh. The transit string is not a simple woman. You may not be able to handle her. For you to compliment her, she must be a powerful person. Ding Meng nodded and praised. In fact, when he was at the Starbao Group, he already felt that the transit string was very powerful. Later, when he heard that Du Peixing had been transferred by her, he realized that the transit string was a very powerful person. She could actually reach out to the military forces. She really couldn't be underestimated. What do you think of my suggestion? Lan Bing asked. If this suggestion was made by someone else, they would probably have already jumped on her. Many people outside were intoxicated by the great CEO Lan's charm. If they could become her secretary, they would probably be more than happy to eat mud. However, Ding Meng thought for a while and said, I need time to think about it. This answer was within Lan Bing's expectations. Most people still didn't know about Ding Meng's return, but she knew that Ding Meng was no longer the same as before. After a while, Ding Meng's market wouldn't be as simple as Ding Meng. It represented the level of war monarch. How could such a person be hired with a simple job? Therefore, when she heard Ding Meng's answer, Lan Bing immediately blinked and said, You know Sister Yan's personality. Well, go ahead. Ding Meng didn't understand why she suddenly threw out this topic at this time. Lan Bing smiled. When you were still around, she naturally wanted to follow you. However, you've been gone for so many years. It's time for her to return to her normal life. Ding Meng asked curiously, and then, Lan Bing said indifferently, I introduced her to a friend of the opposite sex last year. They got along quite well. Oh, Ding Meng was very surprised. He did not expect Lan Bing to change so much. She was even interested in being a matchmaker. This is a good thing. As long as you think it's a good thing. Lan Bing smiled slyly. She had indeed studied Ding Meng very thoroughly. Ding Meng didn't care about anything else, but he was extremely concerned about his friends. Lan Bing was indeed very good to Meng Yan, and this was something that Ding Meng had to appreciate. Ding Meng also smiled. Let me be your secretary. I don't know if your Xinghao group can afford this salary. Seeing that Ding Meng had changed his mind, Lan Bing immediately said, I know that you don't care about the salary, but I can be responsible. If you see anything in the Blue Moon branch that you like, just tell me. If I can use it, you can use it. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped. One of his tasks this time was to find out the research results of Dr. Harsink in the Xinghao group. This was probably a top secret of the Xinghao group. Perhaps even someone like Lan Bing wouldn't have access to it. However, this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. He had to get into the inner circle of the Xinghao group first. Lan Bing's olive branch was a good opportunity, so Ding Meng decided to be straightforward. Then when can I come to work? Lan Bing was even more straightforward. Now, Ding Meng stared and said, Don't I need to go through any formalities? No, Lan Bing said decisively. You're specially recruited. Your basic information will appear in the internal system of the Xinghao group later. In half an hour at most, everyone in the Xingfeng building will know that you're Secretary Ding. Seeing how straightforward she was and how charming her smile was, Ding Meng smiled bitterly. Why do I feel like I've fallen into your trap again? You're right to feel that way. Lan Bing snapped her fingers elegantly. This is called cooperation. It proves that the Xinghao group has something that you need. Ding Meng couldn't help but be convinced. This woman seemed to have calculated everything. But I can't come to report now. I still have some things to deal with, Ding Meng said. Lan Bing nodded. Understood. Go ahead. As she spoke, she stretched out her finger and gently pulled in the air. An exquisite crystal card under the coffee table automatically flew into the air. This is the special pass of the Blue Moon branch. Take this and go to the logistics department on the 50th floor to get your exclusive equipment. Ding Meng's eyelids drooped again. It seemed that Lan Bing had already prepared for this. Lan Bing smiled and said, After today, I hope you can report to the Xingfeng building. There's a wristband in the equipment you'll receive. Your work schedule is on it. It won't take up too much of your time. Don't worry. I promise that the transit string won't trouble you these 2 days. What she meant was that she would be the one to deal with Ling Xingxian, who had mobilized a large force and came with great momentum. After all, Ding Meng was now one of Sheng Hao's people. At this time, Meng Yin came in with a tray. Ding Meng put away the card and glanced at Meng Yin. Sister Yin, you don't have to follow me today. Go with President Lan. Meng Yin asked curiously, Have you finished talking? Sure enough, Meng Yin knew everything. But this was good. With Meng Yan's relationship, it was unlikely that Lan Bing would stand on the opposite side of Ding Meng. Seeing Ding Meng slowly walk out of the president's office, Meng Yin couldn't help but ask, Did Mr. Ting agree? Lan Bing smiled and nodded. Meng Yin heaved a sigh of relief. This is good. With Sheng Hao Group's intervention, Mr. Ting will be under a lot less pressure. Lan Bing didn't answer this time. She couldn't tell Meng Yin that with Ding Meng's style of doing things, Ding Meng agreed so quickly. It couldn't be because of her and Meng Yin. There must be something or someone in Sheng Hao Group that Ding Meng wanted. She had already felt it from the conversation with Ding Meng just now. However, Meng Yin misunderstood. She sighed and said, I knew it. Mr. Ting has always been like this. He must have stayed in Sheng Hao Group because of you. Lan Bing glared at her and said, Sister Yin, what are you talking about? Meng Yin smiled embarrassedly and said, It's just between the two of us. Mr. Ting is definitely worthy of you. Miss Dai is still a little bit lacking. Lan Bing's expression was a little unnatural. Sister Yin, don't forget that the 5th daughter of the Dai family is Ding Meng's real girlfriend. Meng Yin curled her lips and said, So what? Even I can't see Mr. Ting's true strength now. It's normal for a person like him to have a lot of wives and concubines in the future. You don't have any objections to this, do you? Lan Bing sighed and said, Sister Yin, only the two of us can talk about this in private. It'll be bad if Njie hears about it. Meng Yin said helplessly, You're not really going to agree with Njie, are you? Lan Bing didn't answer, but a strange smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. It was both proud and strange. Ding Meng definitely didn't expect that the two women would talk about this kind of topic after he left. At this time, he had already arrived at the logistics department on the 50th floor. To his surprise, this place wasn't a storehouse like he had imagined. It was just an ordinary business office area. The person who received him was a young man named Qingda. He was the custodian of the logistics department. After showing his special pass, Qingda was immediately shocked by Ding Meng. Secretary Ding? What's wrong? Ding Meng saw that he was trembling. No, nothing. Qingda's heart was in turmoil. This Ding Meng didn't look older than him, but he was actually the new secretary of the president. Everyone in the Blue Moon branch knew that the high and mighty President Lan was usually as cold as ice and almost never interacted with men. Now, she had directly hired a male secretary who was in charge of security. Secretary Ding, this is the list of items that belong to you. Please take a look. The optical supercomputer on Qing Da's desk raised a screen, listing all kinds of items and data. Ding Meng glanced at it and found that the so-called equipment Lan Bing was talking about was a hodgepodge. 5 suits, 3 work uniforms, Sheng Hao's 7-star combat armor, Blue Moon version of the Hercules 2nd-generation armor, 3 boxes of photoelectric guns, 1 Sheng Hao's Rufeng high-end flying car, the Aristocrat 4th-generation wrist device, the 7-star portable personal medical device. In addition to these, there were a lot of miscellaneous enhancers, catalysts, and supplies. At the end of the list was 3 million galactic credits. Ding Meng frowned. What the hell is this? Why do I need the photoelectric guns? Qingde carefully explained. This is the list of equipment that President Lan has equipped. Ding Meng waved his hand. I don't need the photoelectric guns, armor, and medical device. Why? Qingde was stunned. Even the experts in the security department were eager to get their hands on the Hercules second-generation armor, because this thing was too precious. It was the latest development of the Sheng Hao Group in recent years, and it had not been mass-produced yet. Great, this man actually didn't want it. Particular. This was Qingde's impression of his new secretary. Of course, he didn't know that with Ding Meng's current energy index, there was no upper limit of the armor's capacity. He would explode if he put it on. In the end, Ding Meng chose the Ru phone car, the aristocrat wrist device, several sets of uniforms, and the last few million in cash. The Ru phone car was easy to understand. It was indeed very inconvenient to move around in Blue Polestar City without a car. Now that he had a special vehicle, he could return the car he borrowed from Li Yu. He had to wear the wrist device now, so that Meng Yin and Lan Bing could contact him at any time. He also had to choose a few sets of uniforms. As the old saying went, it was not good to be unconventional. After all, he was now a man of status. As for the few million in cash, it would be a waste if he didn't take it. Lan Bing was the boss of the Blue Moon branch, so she would definitely be more generous than the hundreds of thousands of dollars the general had. Not to mention other things, this money was enough for him to go to the gourmet city in the southern district to eat. Chapter 619. After coming out of the Xinfeng building, Ding Meng drove directly to the eastern district of Blue Polestar City. The authority of this Rufeng flying car was even higher than that of Li Yu's Lightbird. As soon as he set the destination coordinates, the traffic control system automatically planned an unmanned flight route for him. In less than half an hour, the flying car landed at the mountaintop villa area of East Star Mountain. This was the Lang family's mansion. Back then, Du Peixing and Lang Ling's engagement party was held here. His purpose for coming here was also very clear. He was here to look for Du Peixing. After the flying car landed on the tarmac, an AI guard quickly approached. Hello, visitor. Please show your identity and tell us your purpose of visit. Ding Meng immediately turned on the wealthy wristwatch and pulled up the hologram of his identity information. I'm here to visit Old Master Lang. Please pass on a message. This wealthy wristwatch was the one on Lan Bing's wrist. This was the fourth-generation product developed by the Sheng Hao Group. It was quite powerful and could even carry out quantum communication between two galaxies. Only high-ranking managers were qualified to wear it. However, Ding Meng's was a male model, while Lan Bing's was a female model. The female model was more exquisite and beautiful, while the male model was more luxurious. After the AI guard returned to the villa area, a figure soon appeared on the tarmac. A middle-aged man quickly ran over. This person was none other than Old Master Lang's personal bodyguard, Fu Zhonghui. Fu Zhonghui had fought side by side with Ding Meng during the water droplet battle in the underground of Planet Thorn. Fu Zhonghui looked very excited. Oh my god, I thought there was a problem with the robot butler program. I didn't expect it to really be you, Ding Meng. You're actually back. Ding Meng smiled and said, Long time no see, Senior Fu. Don't call me Senior. Fu Zhonghui affectionately put his arm around Ding Meng's shoulder. Let's go inside and talk. Old Master, Miss, and Peixing are all at home. They'll probably be very happy that you're back. He was so kind because of the water droplet battle. If Ding Meng had not used his unique skill to hold Chu Mingliang back, the expedition would have flown into the wormhole. He, Kuan Ping, Xing Ming, and the other experts would have all been killed by the water droplets. In other words, Fu Zhonghui's life was saved by Ding Meng. Therefore, Fu Zhonghui was extremely excited to see Ding Meng safe and sound in the Lang family's courtyard. In the hall on the first floor of the Lang family's villa, Lang Dun, Lang Ling, and Du Peixing had been waiting for a long time. When they saw that it was really Ding Meng, Du Peixing immediately rushed forward. It's really Brother Ding. You're really still alive. That's great. After some small talk, the servants served drinks and pastries. The four of them sat on the sofa. Du Peixing rubbed his hands excitedly. Ding Ming, don't go anywhere today. Just stay here. I've already informed Du Mo and asked him to come back immediately. Let's drink to our heart's content tonight. Ding Ming asked curiously, Brother Xing, where's Du Mo now? He knew that Du Mo had joined the military, but he did not know the details. Du Peixing smiled and said, Du Mo is now serving in the interstellar fleet of the Azure system. He's already a major. Ding Ming knew about the military ranks of the Federation. He could not help but be surprised. Oh, Du Mo is also a warlord? That's really fast. Du Peixing laughed loudly. That kid is working hard. He didn't embarrass me as his big brother. There was a proud look on his face as he spoke. Fu Zhonghui could not help but remind him, Peixing, don't be so proud. Take a closer look at Ding Ming. Du Peixing sensed for a moment and said hesitantly, Ding Ming, where's your origin energy aura? What's going on? Ding Ming smiled and decided not to hide his strength in front of these old friends. He slightly activated the first point of origin, and Du Peixing and Fu Zhonghui felt dizzy for a moment. Du Peixing sighed after a long time. Your aura doesn't seem to be below that of a warlord. Fu Zhonghui smiled and said, Peixing, based on my many years of experience and observation, this is the realm of perfection. Ding Ming has probably reached the Battle Monarch level by now, right? Ding Ming smiled and did not answer. If you were to tell them the truth, they would probably be shocked. Du Peixing was born into an aristocratic family and had a good upbringing. He did not ask about Ding Ming's experiences over the years, knowing that it was his privacy. Thus, he changed his tone and said, Ding Ming, how long have you been back? Ding Ming said, not long. I've only been back for less than a month. In less than a month, Ding Ming came to visit the old master. Of course, he must be here for Du Mo. It was enough to show that Ding Ming also regarded Du Mo as a close friend. Du Peixing sighed and said, Ding Ming, you and Du Mo are really, how should I put it? And Uncle Hui, you two fought side by side, huh? Ding Ming smiled and said, Brother Xing, actually I have something I need your help with this time. Du Peixing said heroically, You're welcome. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened to the USS expedition when it returned to the Federation. I wouldn't even frown if you asked me for 10 things, let alone one. Ding Ming sighed. She had to tell them about Feng Jinghao's accident. Judging from the expressions of Du Peixing, Fu Zhonghui, and the rest of them, they probably didn't know what had happened in the Flying Star City yet. Du Peixing smiled bitterly. Ding Ming, to tell you the truth, we all thought you were dead. Because of this, I offended Ling Xingxian. She thought I was the one who harmed you and wanted me to bear the consequences. In the end, I was transferred out of the special class fleet. Now, I have returned to the ground forces. You don't have to worry about Gulaga and Sleeman. As long as they are still alive, it won't be a problem for us to bring them back. Murphy is now serving in the interstellar fleet, so it won't be a problem for him to mobilize a few starships. Fu Zhonghui said, Peixing, Commander Gulaga, and Silman are on planet exile, not in the Federation's territory. The Federation can't do anything about it, and neither can the Empire. It's not convenient for little Mo to interfere with it with his authority. Let me find them. I have a few old friends who often deal in materials in outer space. I'll contact them. With their capabilities, they can send them back to KV-303 in 2 days at most. Ding Ming was overjoyed and quickly thanked Fu Zhonghui. Thank you, Senior Fu. Fu Zhonghui also smiled. I told you not to call me Senior. Call me Uncle Hui. We fought side by side. We're not strangers. Ding Ming also knew that Fu Zhonghui's action was a huge favor. Although Fu Zhonghui said it casually, Ding Ming knew that this matter was actually very difficult to handle. The planet exile where Gulaga and Silman were exiled was even farther away than the dead silent planet he had stayed on before. How could he describe this distance? If a large starship flew normally, it would take at least 2 months to fly back to KV-303. However, Fu Zhonghui said that it would only take 2 days. This meant that his friends must have used the starship's continuous short-distance transmission and positioning jump to get back. If it was just to send 2 people back, the cost of transportation would be too high. Therefore, this was a huge favor. Fu Zhonghui clearly understood Ding Meng's urgency. Ding Meng definitely wanted to see his old friends as soon as possible. And when Fu Zhonghui said that he had a few old friends who often dealt in materials in outer space, these friends of his were definitely not ordinary people. Ding Meng replied gratefully, "All right, thank you, Uncle Hui. If the conditions permit, I wonder if Uncle Hui can introduce me to these friends of yours." Fu Zhonghui's eyes revealed a look of approval. "No problem at all. They definitely want to get to know you too." After chatting for an entire afternoon, a transport ship with a military insignia landed on the tarmac in the evening. Dumo's figure quickly appeared in the hall on the first floor. The current Dumo had long since shed his initial naivety. His straight military uniform made him look extremely handsome. His entire person was also quite imposing, and there was a faint sense of dignity between his brows. "Ding Meng." Dumo came up and punched Ding Meng's shoulder. His eyes were a little red. "Welcome back." Ding Meng smiled. "Dumo, long time no see." Dumo waved his hand. "Don't say anything else. Drink with me for 3 days. You're not allowed to go anywhere. This kind of opportunity is quite rare." Ding Meng smiled again. Dumo seemed to have become a lot more straightforward. Only then did he notice that Dumo did not come back alone. Standing behind Dumo was a lovely and beautiful woman. Ding Meng felt that this person was somewhat familiar. "Hello, Ding Meng." The beautiful woman took the initiative to speak. Ding Meng was stunned. Dumo smiled. "Have you forgotten? The 3 of us graduated from the Starlight examination together." Ding Meng suddenly realized. "You're Liang Yiran." Liang Yiran showed a charming smile. "That's good. I really thought you didn't remember me." After Du Peixing's explanation, Ding Meng learned that after graduating from the Starlight examination, Dumo and Liang Yiran got together and gradually developed into a relationship. Now, they had already carried out the engagement ceremony. All that was left was to hold the wedding ceremony. The Du family was quite famous in Blue Pole Star City, but the Liang family was even more famous. Liang Yiran came from the capital of Saint Splendor and was the youngest granddaughter of the 3rd generation of the Liang family. The Liang family controlled the Red Moon International Trading Group, the 4th-ranked conglomerate in the Federation. Therefore, this marriage could be considered as the Du family climbing up the social ladder. However, the 2 of them were truly in love with each other and did not participate in too many external factors. Now, Dumo was a fleet major in the Blue Moon Army, but Liang Yiran did not return to the capital. Instead, she stayed in Blue Pole Star City and set up her own trading company. They could be considered a happy couple with both career and love. Ding Meng scratched his head and said, "I'm sorry, I came back late. Besides, I'm used to being poor, so I don't have any good gifts." Dumo smiled and said, "There's no need to be polite between us. Seeing you come back safely, I'm more happy than anything else." Liang Yiran explained. Ding Meng, Dumo was still patrolling the periphery of the Sky Eagle Division during the day. When he heard that you had returned, he couldn't believe it at first, but when he confirmed that the news was true, he immediately sent a message back. The Sky Eagle Division was a little far from the Blue Star Division, but it only took him an afternoon to come back. This showed that Ding Meng's position in Dumo's heart was extremely high. Du Peixing waved his hand and said, "All right, everyone is here. It's time for dinner. Let's sit down and talk while we eat." Chapter 620. The Lang family had prepared a sumptuous dinner. The table was filled with all kinds of dishes. Of course, there were plenty of dishes that Ding Meng had never seen before. It had been many years since he last enjoyed such delicacies. Therefore, as soon as he sat down, Ding Meng swept through the food like a whirlwind, like a vacuum cleaner sweeping the floor. Seeing how he ate, Dumo could not help but laugh. "Ding Meng, you must have suffered a lot in outer space all these years, right?" Ding Meng was chewing on a large roasted chicken. His mouth was full of oil. Yes. To be honest, I haven't tasted anything for a long time. Duo asked carefully. Ding Ming, I'm very curious. When the SS expedition flew into the wormhole, what happened to the ancient dragon? Only he had the right to ask such a question. After all, he was Ding Ming's close friend. Ding Ming sighed. That dragon was eventually beaten back to its original form by the cosmic storm in the space-time rift. It was reduced to its original form of a water droplet. Du Peixing was shocked. It didn't die even under such circumstances? Ding Ming said, this spore life form that was born in ancient times is indeed difficult to kill. But don't worry, it is no longer a threat to us. After all, it has been beaten back to its original form, and even its memory has been erased. Everyone was silent. This kind of thing was hard for them to imagine. Liang Iran asked curiously, by the way, Ding Ming, where were you and these expeditions sent to? Before Ding Ming could answer, Duo quickly explained, Ding Ming, don't mind her. Iran is now running a trading company that specializes in buying all kinds of strange materials in outer space. She is very interested in things outside of our solar system. Ding Ming smiled gently and said, I've been to many places over the years, and the Federal Empire's environment is the best. I can only tell you that the expedition was sent hundreds of light years away, and I even met real interstellar pirates there. It was not that he was unwilling to talk about his experience, but it was just that this experience was too bizarre, too complicated, and too tortuous. Madison Planet, Azure Tree Planet, Deity Battlefield Planet, Extreme Flame Planet, all kinds of life forms, secrets, singularities, Xinguang technology, Mao, planet civilization. Any one of them would overturn Du Mo and the other's understanding. However, Liang Iran's interest was piqued. There are space pirates outside the galaxy? Is it a human? Ding Ming smiled and said, they're humans. Just like us, they're also origin ability users. However, their name is different. They call them psionicists. Psionicists? Liang Iran was even more curious now. Were they? Iran. Duo was a little unhappy. Although he was curious, this was her privacy. He couldn't keep staring at it. Liang Iran immediately quieted down and obediently picked up her chopsticks to pick up the food. Ding Ming laughed and said, It's okay, Duo. My experience while I was away was quite complicated. I can't explain it all in a short time. When I have time, I'll let you and Iran talk about it slowly. Liang Iran was happy now. That's great, Ding Ming. Every time my company's fleet comes back from the fertile chalk galaxy, I've heard them talk about all kinds of strange things. Oh, Ding Ming was a little surprised. Your business has even reached the fertile chalk galaxy? It's not very peaceful there. When he mentioned the fertile chalk galaxy, Du Peixing's expression became serious. He sighed and said, Yes, in recent years, the Steel Main Empire has popped up among the frogmen. This has increased the pressure on the Norse Empire. I've heard many old brothers in the fleet say that there will be a great war between the Empire and the frogmen. Dumo's eyes immediately shone brightly. Legends and heroes can only be born during wartime. What do you know? Du Peixing rolled his eyes at him. Do you think it's a normal war? Wars between different civilizations are all destructive disasters. Back when the Federation fought with the devouring world, how many people died? It was in the billions. Also, when the Empire and the Frogmen went to war, did you think the Federation wouldn't be affected? You're short-sighted. Duo wasn't angry after being scolded by his brother. I just haven't participated in a war before. When the war was mentioned, Ding Ming thought of Shuiyin and Ren Tianlan. They were the victims of that war. All right, where are Aunt Shuiyin and the others? I heard that they went to the capital to rest. Ding Ming suddenly asked. Lang Ling and Fu Zhonghui's expressions immediately darkened. Lang Ling explained, Ding Ming, after you left, Miss Ling blamed Pei Xing. She said that he forced you to participate in the war, which led to your death. You should know about the transit string. She's a high-ranking member of the Starry Rainbow Group. Sometimes, businessmen have to weigh their own interests. Ding Ming nodded. That's right. She promised me many things, but she didn't fulfill any of them. Fu Zhonghui's expression darkened. Senior, Xue could have gone to the Starry Rainbow Group. Even if she didn't go, The group of doctors could have been recommended by the Starry Rainbow Group to work in St. Splendor's advanced medical institutions. However, the Starry Rainbow Group didn't do that. In the end, Miss Ling used her connections to help Senior Shui return to the capital. She's been recuperating in the sanatorium ever since. Seeing his gloomy expression, Ding Meng knew that there was more to it. It can't be that simple, right? Lang Ling gritted his teeth and said, "Only Aunt Shui and Uncle Ren were resettled." Ding Meng said, "I remember that there were a few hundred people that I saved, right? What about the others?" Lang Ling said, "The others were taken by several major medical and health institutions in the capital." "They're going?" Ding Meng's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Lang Ling said, "They're not going to work. They're going to be used by those institutions for research." Ding Meng asked curiously, "Research? What do they want to research?" Lang Ling said, "These people survived the war in the devouring world and lived on the poisonous barrier star for many years. In the end, they were miraculously cured. Many authoritative experts in the medical and biological fields hope to research the root cause of the strange poison in their bodies. Therefore, many of them have been put under control. There's been no news of them until now." She didn't dare to be too explicit with her words, but how could Ding Meng not understand the logic behind it? To put it nicely, it was called research. To put it bluntly, it was locking these people up and isolating them from normal people. They were used for all kinds of experiments and research. They were no different from white mice and had no freedom at all. As for no news of them at all, the underlying meaning was that it was unknown whether they were alive or dead. Perhaps some of them had already been killed by the research. With a soft bang, the cup in Ding Meng's hand turned into powder. Isn't the Federation's law against direct human experimentation? How did things turn out like this? Du Peixing sighed. First of all, these people's citizenship hasn't been settled yet. It's reasonable that they can't be properly resettled. Second, the news of their return can't be made public because it will cause panic among normal citizens. Third, this matter is largely related to the Xinhong Group. The Xinhong Group again? A cold light flashed in Ding Meng's eyes. What's going on? Brother Xing, sister-in-law, tell me in detail. Du Peixing's expression was ugly. After you left, the old master settled the citizenship of Senior Shui and Senior Ren. However, the old master couldn't do anything about the remaining hundreds of people. After all, there were too many of them. Ding Meng could understand this. The old master had a high reputation. With his identity as a guarantee, it was easy to settle the citizenship of Shui Yin and Ren Tianlan. But the transit string promised me that she could settle the citizenship of everyone in the refugee camp. Du Peixing nodded. With the power of the Xinhong Group, she could. However, they had internal problems at that time. The Xinhong Group has always been quite successful in the field of medicine and biology. They also cooperate well with several major institutions and research institutes. Ding Meng suddenly interrupted him. So they thought that I was dead. The people I saved were worthless. It was better to use them for exchange. Those institutions would study these survivors in exchange for support and cooperation with the Xinhong Group. Is that right? Du Peixing didn't say anything, but his expression obviously admitted it. Ding Meng said expressionlessly, "Didn't the relevant institutions of the Federation do anything about this?" Du Peixing smiled bitterly. They couldn't do anything even if they wanted to. They announced to the public that they were extracting the blood of these people for research. Who knows if they were conducting live experiments in private? It would be strange if they could research it. Ding Meng sneered disdainfully. How could these so-called experts research the K-virus? Lang Ling said, with the power of the Xinhong Group, even if they were live experiments, they could still suppress the matter. This is what Ling Zhixing usually does. My father and I went to the capital several times to ask to see these people, but the Xinhong Group ignored us. The research institutes also refused our requests. In short, my father and I tried our best. Ding Meng, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. You wasted your efforts to save Aunt Shui and the others. Sister-in-law, it's not your fault. You've already helped a lot. Ding Meng waved his hand and asked in a low voice, "Was this so-called exchange of benefits done by the transit string?" Du Peixing shook his head and said, "As far as I know, the transit string didn't want to do this. This decision was made by the second daughter of the Xinhong group, Ling Xingwen. Ling Zhixing supported her, so he didn't finish his sentence, but he had already expressed his meaning." Ding Meng suddenly fell silent. Facing the table full of delicious food, he suddenly lost his appetite. "I only regret one thing right now," Ding Meng said expressionlessly. Everyone looked at him curiously, not knowing what he meant. Ding Meng said coldly, "A few days ago, in the Flying Star City, I was too merciful. I only killed a dozen of their battle monarchs." Du Peixing, Fu Zhonghui, and Lang Ling probably didn't know what was going on, but Du Mo was shocked. "A few days ago, I heard from my colleagues that more than a dozen battle monarchs of the Xinhong group were beheaded by a mysterious expert. Could it be you?" Liang Yiran also covered her mouth in shock. But the Xinhong group claimed that it was an accident in space. "It was me." Ding Meng's expression was cold. "If the people I rescued from Planet V4 were really tortured to death for research purposes, then I'm sorry, but this Ling Xingwen can only have one ending, and that is to die." Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This murderous aura was extremely sharp. Most importantly, was Ding Meng's current strength so terrifying? He had beheaded more than a dozen battle monarchs with a single strike. How many people in the Federation were his match? He really had the right to say such words. Chapter 621. By the time they left the Lang family's villa, it was already the afternoon of the second day. That night, Ding Meng and Du Mo chatted for most of the night. Most of the time, they were discussing the problems of origin ability martial arts. However, Ding Meng was still a little unhappy. Du Mo also knew that he was worried about the safety of Shuyin and the others. Thus, he could only persuade him nicely. After leaving the Lang family's house, Ding Meng directly drove to the Xingfeng building in the suburbs. The wristwatch on his wrist was equipped with an intelligent reminder assistant. It indicated that the group's president, Lan Bing, would be attending a banquet at 1900 hours tonight. According to the schedule, the personal assistant, Guan Fan, the administrative secretary, Yuling Wei, the security secretary, Ding Meng, and the relevant entourage were to arrive on time at 1700 hours. The location was Villa Number 2 in the southern suburbs, Huading Mountain Villa. Huading Mountain Villa was as famous as East Star Mountain. It was the famous residence of the rich and powerful in Blue Pole Star City. It was built on a quiet and secluded hillside, and its environment was almost comparable to Meteor City. From information provided by the wristwatch, the president, Lan Bing, lived in Villa Number 2, which was her private residence. Ding Meng was a little puzzled. The assistant reminded him to attend a banquet, not to hold a banquet. Why did Lan Bing want this group of people to go to her home? Soon, Huading Mountain Villa opened Ding Meng's eyes, especially Huading Mountain Villa Number 2. It was located under a waterfall, and it was built in the most retro style of Huaxia's Lotus Pond. It covered an area of 20,000 square meters, and the villa's interior had pavilions and waterside pavilions. Of course, this was just the appearance. The internal three-story building was all high-tech. The main material of the villa was actually made of nanochromium porcelain. Ding Meng had only seen this material on the Supreme and Conqueror starships. In other words, Lan Bing's residence was equivalent to a small starship. Even if it was in the suburbs, ordinary railguns might not be able to blast it in. On the surface, it looked like an exclusive villa that was pleasing to the eye, but in fact, it was a small fortress with tight security. Sure enough, after Ding Meng's, like the wind, landed on a nearby riverbank, he spread out his psychic vision and immediately found that the villa was equipped with all kinds of energy weapons and defensive measures. There was even a small power furnace under the villa, equipped with a shield generator. This Huading 2 could be like a starship, generating an energy shield at a critical moment. The courtyard was a pond covered with lotus leaves, and the potted plants in the surroundings were placed just right. This was simply more imposing than the palaces of the Great Wei dynasty's imperial family. Of course, it was still the same old saying. The cheap mentality of men was causing trouble. If you can't get it, you're afraid that the fertile water will flow to other people's fields. However, Ding Ming quickly dispelled these thoughts. As a powerful warrior at the battle sage level, he was very determined and would not let these small things affect his mood. It was a good thing that Sheng Hao's big shot was coming. It would be good if he could leave an impression. I must get the professor's research results. While he was thinking, the door on the first floor of the villa opened automatically. Lan Bing had finished putting on her makeup. Ding Ming turned around and was shocked. This Lan Bing was really a woman who could change her appearance at any time. In order to show that Yu Anjia was coming, she had dressed up meticulously and put on exquisite makeup. A pair of exaggerated silver round earrings was eye-catching, and she was wearing a long black dress. She exuded a strong feminine aura from head to toe, completely different from her previous workplace style. Ding Ming almost did not recognize her. If it were not for the fact that Guan Fan, Lan Bing's personal assistant, was following her respectfully, Ding Ming would have thought that she was another person. In fact, the young girl named Guan Fan was also quite beautiful, but she was overshadowed by Lan Bing. It was rare to see Ding Ming in a daze. Lan Bing could not help but laugh happily. "What's wrong? You don't recognize me?" Ding Ming was indeed stunned by her again, but his vocabulary was seriously lacking. "Amazing." At this time, Yu Lingwei came over and said respectfully, "President Lan, I just received a notice that President Yu will be here soon." In fact, there was no need for her to remind him. There was already a luxurious flying car spewing out crystal flames, slowly descending in the sky. Not long after, 3 men appeared at the gate of the courtyard. Although the 3 of them walked in side by side, Ding Ming recognized Yu Anji at a glance. The second young master of the Sheng Hao group was really a talent. He was tall and straight, and had an extraordinary bearing. He looked about 45 years old. His appearance could be described as gentle. Of course, it was not that he was not handsome, but that gentleness was more than handsomeness. His handsomeness was not inferior to Xings. Ding Ming had rarely seen such a handsome man. Yuan Jia was not wearing expensive clothes. He was just wearing a suit that the Sheng Hao group usually wore. However, when he wore it, he had a gentle and elegant elite look. Moreover, he always had a smile on his face and an amiable attitude. It was difficult to associate him with the legendary CEO of the Sheng Hao group. If there was anything different about him, it was that his eyes flashed with a trace of brilliance from time to time, making him more vivid, bright, and tall. The young man also took the initiative to shake hands. "Yam Chu, President Yu's secretary. Secretary Ding, please take care of me in the future." Jin Xiaoyan said apologetically, "Mr. Ding Ming, I'm very sorry about these things. Actually, Miss Ling was against most of the decisions, but unfortunately, she didn't get more support, so..." Ding Ming said lightly, "So she just let it be. Is that right?" Jin Xiaoyan lowered her head and said, "Mr. Ding Ming, I sincerely apologize to you on behalf of Miss Ling for not dealing with these things properly." Ding Ming nodded. "I don't mean to blame her, but there's something I need you to tell her." Jin Xiaoyan said, "Please speak." Ding Ming said, "If anything happens to the group of Dr. Refugees on Planet V4, Star Rainbow Group will also receive the corresponding consequences." The side hall fell into silence at this moment. Everyone was shocked by Ding Ming's words. Even Huang Pei and the other 2 looked at him in surprise. They knew that he had some ability, but he couldn't be so arrogant, right? Did he know who he was talking to? Even if Jin Xiaoyan was just a secretary, she was the secretary of the transit string. Her attitude now represented the attitude of the transit string. At this moment, a dull voice came from the door of the side hall. Can I take this as a threat to Star Rainbow Group? The voice was not loud, but the arrogant tone could not be concealed. Everyone turned their heads and saw a tall, middle-aged man walking in. For a moment, everyone looked at each other. No one present knew this person, but since this person could appear here, it proved that his identity was definitely not bad. Huang Pei and Yamcha looked at each other again. Both of their eyes were filled with surprise, and there was even a trace of horror in their surprise. The guy who came in was the same as Secretary Ding. They couldn't see through his depth at all. Although his aura was only at the War Reverend rank, the profound foundation displayed by his fluctuations was no less than theirs. The man's tone was arrogant, but Ding Meng was still cold and expressionless, because his answer was even more arrogant. If you think it's a threat, then it's a threat. If you think it's not a threat, then I'm afraid it will become a threat sooner or later. The man was not angry, but looked at him with interest. As expected of me, I rushed here without eating. Young people nowadays are really amazing. They don't care about anything just because they have a little ability. Ding Ming said indifferently, "If you want to be taken seriously, you have to at least have some weight." The man smiled. "All right, I'm here today to see if you're the one who weighs more or if I weigh less." After saying that, he suddenly stopped and stared straight at Ding Ming, as if an invisible pressure had been released. Chapter 6:23. Many warlord-level experts knew how to use origin energy pressure, and everyone present was an expert. However, when the man glared at them, none of them felt any origin energy pressure. Just because they couldn't sense it didn't mean that Ding Meng couldn't sense it either. In Ding Meng's field of vision, the surrounding scenery instantly changed. He was actually in the middle of the boundless space, and in front of him were various nebulae and celestial bodies. This proved that the telekinesis transmitted by the man contained a large amount of the wonders of the universe. This person had a lot of experience. However, Ding Meng wasn't afraid of this at all. This was because this was a mental attack, and it belonged to the illusion type of telekinesis. Telekinesis was the nemesis of this type of attack. The telekinesis field of vision quickly expanded, and tiny dots tore through the starry sky like shooting stars. The real scene in the side hall was restored bit by bit in Ding Meng's field of vision. The man was slightly surprised. This Ding Meng was only around 30 years old, but he actually cultivated telekinesis. Looking at the density of his telekinesis, his rank wasn't low. He was at least an intermediate-level warlock. At this moment, the man stopped underestimating him and urged his origin energy to mobilize his brain. A large amount of telekinesis waves came crashing down like waves. In Ding Meng's eyes, these telekinesis waves were no different from a black ocean. For a moment, a trace of anger appeared in his heart. He had been holding back when he used his telekinesis, as he was worried that there would be other people in the side hall. He didn't want to spread his telekinesis to the surroundings. If he couldn't block this attack, then Cartel and Jin Xiaoyan would definitely suffer. They might even go crazy and jump off a building on the spot. Ding Meng took in a deep breath, and his gaze turned sharp. This time around, several hundred tiny dots of telekinesis formed the shape of the green spirit divine tree, which then swept out to meet the other party's black waves. Generally speaking, divine green spirit techniques leaned towards defense, control, and healing. They weren't like kinetic telekinesis, which specialized in offense. Thus, the divine tree spun rapidly in the center of the side hall, sweeping in all of the opponent's flux energy fluctuations. This scene could only be seen by the two people involved. It was like a healthy tree, purifying all of the black smoke in the surroundings. It was really purified completely. The man revealed a surprised expression. There weren't many people who could surpass him in telekinesis, but this youngster had easily resolved it. No wonder this person could kill more than 10 battle monarchs with a single slash. So, that was how it was. At this moment, Huang Pei and the others could see that these two people were secretly competing with each other in telekinesis.